Hey everyone, and welcome to Living by the Law, the podcast discussing fictional worlds and how wondrous and ridiculous they are. My name is Matt, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jude and Guy. Living by the Law is not currently sponsored. If you'd wish to sponsor us, carve your offer into the most valuable piece of jewelry you own, then hike it halfway across your country alone. If anybody asks for it, just hand it over. We will hear you. We always do.
This time, we return to Middle-earth, where we discuss the 5 wizards, Tom Bombadil, and even a little extra bit at the beginning. Of course, it goes without saying that from here onwards is a spoiler zone for anything relating to Middle-earth, and specifically the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit books.
So, do you guys know my favorite wizard?
Oh, God.
Is it fucking Dumbledore?
Oh, it's not Dumbledore. My favorite wizard
Harry
of
Potter?
all time.
Harry Potter?
Not Harry
Ronald
Potter.
Weasley.
Not Ronald Weasley. My favorite wizard of all time is Mundungus Fletcher. Because this boy had the ball he was guarding the most important guy in the world. And he's like, I don't need to guard this boy because there's cauldrons to go by. And that is the ballest move to have the entire plot of the 5th book of Harry Potter is because of fucking Mundungus Fletcher. Do you guys have...
Okay.
I was so sure of the punchline of that joke, and it just derailed.
Was that even a joke?
I think Jude, I think it was gonna be a joke, and then he realized that he had a serious point to make.
Yeah, I think so, possibly. I forgot how much Matt's annoying when he's not hosting. All right.
Come on, he's a space wizard.
Today's episode, is back to Middle-earth, and who are the wizards? What the hell is Tom Bombadil? And also my small little treat for you guys, because you asked about it last time, a little bit about the hobbits.
Oh, excellent! I love them so much. Let me get my notes out. I've got my notes.
Time for magic.
The best part of all, can you remind me a little bit about what happened in the Second Age?
Oh, Christ. I literally, the other day, was looking over my desk and I found my notes from that episode that I take while I listen to make sure I'm listening properly and can commentate without sounding like an idiot. And I threw them in the bin and they're now gone. There was some cool eagles and a hell guy who sucked real bad. And there's an age before the one that we listened to. That was the second one. And it was a good age. Listen, there was good things happened and bad things happened as well. Listen, we've all got to go through the hard times. That's how life's like. And I think my co-host Matt can take over from here.
I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think that's the perfect description.
We're the worst.
I feel like I'm one of those students who's walked into class and guys turned to me and said, "I didn't do the homework. Did you?" And I'm like, "There was homework."
Oh no.
And I'm like looking at this pop quiz we're looking at, and I'm like, I wasn't even in these classes, let alone studied for them.
Have you just walked into a lecture that you didn't actually have the subject for?
That's what I feel like. God. Okay, let's do this for real. There was the first age where everything was created. Then there was the second age, where. So, I believe if I'm wrong, the start of the second age was when half the world got like flooded under the ocean.
Yep, that was end of the Second Age, kind of start of the second. Yep. That kind of time period. Yep.
It went under the ocean, and then all the elves.
Oh, we had all the maps. Do we get more maps?
All the elves went over to there, Happy Land, the Undying Lands.
I'm with it. I remember now.
Because they fought a war, and then they some cool men who fought on the right side of the war got a star-shaped island for them to be on, and then there were some elves in the east of what was left of the land, and then in the west was the evil people and Sauron, who was planning, and he had like
other way around. East is Sauron.
Yeah, sorry.
East is
Sauron.
Bad. East is bad. West is good.
Yeah. Don't go around saying that, Jude. That's probably a not great way to make friends.
Well, if you go, I will quickly say on that, just to disprove the whole, East is bad. If you go far enough east, you get good again. It's just like the middle is the bad, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
That happens when the Earth is fucking round.
No. Fuck.
Has he given
Well,
up
no,
on us
because there's other
Did you
groups
forget
of
how
men
around
that-
Earth works?
there's other people that live on the other side of Mordor if you go far enough without going back to fucking the Western Shores.
Okay. But the whole point was that there was like Sauron tricked one of the elves into making him a ring of power, and then there was other rings that were given out to people. The elves worked out what they were doing, so they discorrupted their rings. And all the humans were corrupted, and the dwarves was like debated whether they were corrupted or not. And then there was a bunch of different wars where Numenor kind of told Sauron he was a prick, and they showed him what was what. And there was like 20 billion different kings and queens of Numenor. But for some reason, they were all dumbasses, and they brought Sauron back as an advisor. And in about like 20 years, he went from a prisoner to an advisor of the king, and then destroyed their entire place. And one guy sailed to the Undying Lands to warn them or something like that.
Yep.
And then there was other guys who survived and went to, and they created the kingdom of Gondor.
Yeah, Gondor and Arnor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was a last giant fight, which was the last alliance of elves and men, which was the start of the Lord of the Rings.
Yes, the prequel scene when Galadriel's doing her talk at the start.
Cast it into the fire.
Yes. Only thing I will quickly offer in there: Sauron made the ring himself back in Mordor, like in secret, rather than the one ring wasn't made by the elf.
Oh, he was just taught him how to do it, I guess.
Yeah. We'll actually get into a little bit about no, not quite actually. That's okay. That sort of wraps up the Second Age. Last Alliance happens. Isildur is the king of Numenor and the king of Arnor and Gondor because his father and his brother died. And eventually Isildur dies, but that's not really a thing for today because he tries to escape with the ring, but then it betrays him and he gets shot. You've seen that scene, Matt.
Yes.
And he falls into some water, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He tries to escape in the river, the Anduin, but then
The ring drowns him.
the ring comes off his finger. And
I've watched like 5 minutes of Lord of the Rings, so I have seen that scene.
Yeah.
Basically
Pretty
none
sure
others.
I'm pretty sure we've shown you the first start of Lord of the Rings about 20 times.
You tried. Whether I was
Exactly.
watching or not is entirely my decision.
Yes.
No, but was
so-
it like... So where did the wizards come in? Because they weren't there the entire time.
No, the Second Age they do not arrive. And honestly, one of the things that made me a little ugh when I was researching for this in particular, there is actually a book out there, a non-Tolkien written book, but like a book that someone's written being a study of Tolkien stuff, if that makes sense. And they actually wrote that the wizards arrived during the Second Age, and I'm like,
Coward.
can we look at like every book Tolkien's ever written where it specifically says they arrive in the Third Age, and that's like super important. But anyway,
This person's a scholar who's written a book about Tolkien stuff, and he's getting fucking schooled by Jude. So you must be like a double scholar.
clearly,
Triple scholar.
yes.
Maybe
What
even
can I say? No,
The
not-
legendary quadruple scholar.
Did they transplant Tolkien's brain directly into Jude's skull? Maybe he drank it like a smoothie, blended that shit up.
I'm now
think
looking
Ju-
at my empty
Jude would
smoothie
do
cup,
that.
not a very different way.
Jude would do that to get more knowledge on
I
Lord of the Rings.
sincerely doubt he would.
I think Jude would dig up the body of Tolkien, necromantically resurrect him, and then steal his brain.
See,
Anyway, so hobbits. So this episode is into the Third Age. This is kinda where everything main story-wise happens. Right toward the end of the Third Age, you've got the Hobbit that happens, and then a big-ish time jump, and then the Lord of the Rings happens, and then the end of Lord of the Rings is the start of the Fourth Age. So everything's kind of contained right at the end. So while there's a lot of fun things happening at the beginning of the Third Age, like a lot of stuff happening, like Arnor going from a really awesome epic kingdom into ruins, and rangers walking around pretending they don't want to be king. Aragorn.
Fucking Aragorn.
There's so possibly, if you're lucky, I'll get to that at some point in the future, because why not? But the first thing that will get super excited, which is a big thing for the start of the Third Age, hobbits.
Hobbits. Those
Hobbits.
Those big-footed little boys.
Yes.
Where have the hobbits been this entire time?
See, that's the best part, because the exact origin of the hobbits is quote-unquote unknown.
Oh no, they can't be cryptids.
No, but the best...
Cryptids, the hobbits are cryptids.
But the best part about it, and this is my favorite thing about the hobbits, all of these other wars going on. So the first stage where there was the Sundering, and sorry, not the Sundering, that's different thing. The War of Wrath, and there's all sorts of things going on in the first stage and the second stage. There's all massive wars going on as well. The hobbits, as far as we can tell, as reading Tolkien's stuff, the hobbits were just chillin', unknown to everyone else.
As in, like, were they chilling, like, locked away somewhere, or were they, like, underground, or were they just did they just
Nope.
have, like, a
They
neat
were-
valley somewhere?
They were literally a valley. They were eventually discovered by other races in the Valley of the Anduin, because the Anduin's, like, the biggest main river that goes right the way through the main part of Middle-earth. And there's a valley on a part of it where the hobbits were discovered, and it was like, what's the word? I believe at some point toward the end of the Second Age is when they were discovered, but when they were discovered, there was clear signs that they'd been there for many, many, many generations, so it's kind of like, hang on a minute, how long have you guys been chilling here when all this shit's been going on around you?
I love. Imagine the house advisor comes running into the elven house and says, my lord, we found this strange race of short men. It's the dwarves. They have great forges and terrifying weapons. What should we do? And, do some shit there. My lord, we found a bunch of other... Then keep going, the humans and all the rest. And, my lord, oh, what now? Oh, I found another race of short men. Oh, how dangerous are these ones? They're just kind of chilling. They've got some cool farms and some weed.
Yep.
They seem to be smoking a lot of pot, sir.
Potweed. They're very chill, actually. They gave me this bagel.
Sir, I quite think we're in danger of being too chill.
Too chill. If we chill too much, our enemies will overrun the gates. We must not let these hobbits influence our lives. We shall leave them to the valley to rot.
So, but
Oh my
then...
god, that's my theory. The elves found them centuries ago, but they put like a curse, like a cover over because they thought they were too dangerous.
Too chill.
They were too chill.
Oh boy. So anyway, nearish the start of the Third Age, because this is obviously going into that. So I say nearish, it's still like a few hundred years into the Third Age, but when you consider the thousands of years that the Third Age goes for, it's nearish the beginning. The hobbits, they had a big migration.
Oh.
The Hobbit migration.
The Hobbit
Hobbits
migration.
did something?
I know. The hobbits migrated. They migrated from one side of the
They're like a
Misty
flock of
Mountains.
geese.
From the one side of the Misty Mountains to the other side.
How far
And
is
Do
that?
they, do they move in an arrow like shape?
No, they kind of roll.
Aerodynamic. They roll. What are they? Pandas from How to Train Your Dragon?
Yes.
From pandas from Kung Fu Panda 3.
Yeah, clearly. So, during this migration, because there was 3 groups of halflings, and one of them, the stools, which are kind of slightly different to the ones we see in Hobbiton and stuff. They went a slightly different direction, and they ended up more north of the Shire because they preferred living in flat woodlands and rather than the hills, because obviously the Shire is all hilly and stuff, and then there's the halflings that live in Bree, which is like a big multi kind of because it's human and halfling kind of settlements. That's the different vibe to the Shire, and then these guys didn't really want either of those things. They went to live in like this woodland river area. And what's the word? So they went there, and the stores have a very infamous one who you might know called Smeagol, who of course becomes Gollum.
Yeah. I just thought
when,
that was a dude.
Nope, he's actually, so when Frodo says, to quote the books and the movies, you were not so very different from a hobbit once, were you, Smeagol? He's pretty damn accurate. He's been like developing into the weird creature of Gollum for like 1,000 years or so, but he was literally an ancestor of the hobbits who just lived in a slightly different place. So yeah,
it's a good foil for Frodo and Bilbo. Like
Exactly,
see what they
exactly.
could have changed into what
Exactly.
could have become.
And that's very much the purpose of Gollum toward the end of the books, is because that's the whole reason Frodo doesn't kill him, and is like, no, we have to keep him alive, because he wants to believe that you can come back from that, because he needs to believe Bilbo can come back, and yeah.
And hey, if they'd have killed him, they wouldn't have been able to do it, because it was
Frodo failed,
was-
exactly, which is
it
super
was- what's
important.
his-
Evil defeated evil. That's the whole eventual point of Lord of the Rings.
Spoilers, sorry.
Yeah, I have no fucking clue what either of you are talking about.
Yeah, that's okay. That's just kind of it. The hobbits just kind of happen, and it's like, oh, okay, these guys are here now.
Do the hobbits specialize in anything? I've always wondered. Like they're short and they're chill, but like the dwarves, as Guy was saying, the dwarves were the greatest craftsmen and miners, and they built great empires. The men were warriors who built like huge empires and bread
And diplomats.
and diplomats, and then the elves were like created the finest things and were like high intelligence and magic. And stuff like that.
Yes. There is a very good power that the hobbits have, which makes them the entire reason that they're the focus of the movies. They are just... It is one of those things where there's never a written exact description, and even like with the other races, there is not like this is the power of this race. It's just kind of a thing that's alluded to throughout the things and then gets established as a thing. The hobbits are kind of more innately resistant to magic, if you will. That can be sort of a personal thing. I mean, you can justify it however you will. Maybe they're just so lazy and dumb that the magic just,
Yeah, I legit thought that Frodo and Bilbo were just so good and chill that the ring was just like, oh no, fuck, I got
Nope.
nothing to
And
work
there's
with.
actually a very interesting thing. And the other thing that makes them very resistant to the ring, especially, as well as magic in general, they have a thing where, for the most part, out of all the races, they do not want for anything, because their life is just so good and perfect. Interesting
wish
point
I was.
here. In the end of the book, obviously, you can't deny that Frodo did a pretty good job for the most part. At the end, it actually potentially could, like, it's a, what's the word, bit of a fan theory, if you will, that Sam would have actually been a better ring bearer in the end, because the whole reason that Frodo fails and gives into the ring is because the ring's using his desire, because he has the really, really strong desire to be able to save himself and Bilbo mainly. And then because not many hobbits really want for anything, but Frodo had that really strong want to save Bilbo, that's what the ring used to corrupt him in the very end. Oh, spoilers, whoops.
Whoops, uh-oh.
But yeah, anyway, so that's just an interesting thing about the hobbits. Then the final thing about the hobbits, which I will give you as well, because I thought it was quite interesting, because, you know, Tolkien was, well, you may know, may not know, Tolkien was a linguist primarily. That was his whole thing. And then it's like he made languages, and then after he made all these languages, he was like, maybe I should make a world for these languages to live in. That might be fun.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah. So because he's really, really smart with languages, that's why the languages are so developed in Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit's language very deliberately has a few words which are derivative of early Rohirrim words, which are one of the groups of men. Because in the early days, their people lived very close together and had interactions, so they kind of, obviously pre-migration, they had a lot of development together, so that's, why if you look into certain things, this is kind of getting into deep territory, which getting into like the individual languages, they have a lot of like shared words and stuff like that, just because of their pre-migration, they developed together, sort of, which, interesting thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, on to the main event, because that's just that little Hobbit thing I thought I'd put on the beginning.
Could I say something about the Hobbit?
Yeah, go ahead.
I always thought it was like they had like the strongest like will. That's why I like the Hobbits. But I do think that thing about not wanting is really interesting. Like being so happy and content that they just don't want anything, no ambition. That's great.
Because everyone who sits around on their ass and smokes weed and bakes bread is described as strong-willed, obviously.
I think they don't actually have innate magic resistance. It's just the amount of weed they smoke. The magic can't get past it.
Yeah.
Magic's so fucking blazed.
It's put off by the weed that it's like there's so much shit in their system I can't even affect it.
Maybe pipeweed's resistant to magic.
Maybe we should all smoke weeds so the magic people can't get us.
Oh god. Okay.
What race becomes the wizards? The humans? That sounds right.
Nope. They're wizards. We'll get into it. So, thing to start with, wizards, or just the word itself in Tolkien's world, is a translation from a Quenya word, which is one of the Elven languages, and basically it means, the word's direct meaning is one of the members of an order claiming to possess and exhibiting eminent knowledge of the history and the nature of the world. So, in Tolkien's world, wizards, by definition, don't actually have anything to do with magic. That's kind of an archetype that's been evolved outside of them. The base thing of wizards themselves was more just being this old, wizened person and having lots of knowledge and stuff. That was more what made a wizard.
Committee.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, a little bit different from the kind of spellcaster wizard archetype, but there's also a thing that, because of the knowing about the wizards that existed during the War of the Ring into the Fourth Age and past, when little, arcane tricksters started to appear and stuff in other kingdoms, they kind of got the name of wizard because they were a spellcaster, and it's like, oh, we've seen people do that, so you're a wizard, but, in reality, it's a bit more than that.
Okay, right.
Do not take me for a conjurer of cheap tricks.
Yes.
Bilbo Baggins.
Don't get me started. So, one of my favorite quotes from the Unfinished Tales, which I should mention actually, a lot of the stuff information wise, if anyone wants more information on the wizards in particular, in the Unfinished Tales, there's a big meaty chapter on all information you could want on them. And there's a little bit of stuff in the Silmarillion kind of spread throughout, but Unfinished Tales is the best place for them. So, one of the best quotes from the Unfinished Tales is, "Of this order, the number is unknown."
Oh no.
So
there was supposed to be 5 of the fuckers.
Yes. We know of 5 wizards, and there's other times when we hear mention of the 5 wizards, but in theory, there is potentially a lot more that we don't know about, whether they're back in the Undying Lands, sent to completely different places that we don't know about, who knows. But the main thing to focus on, there is 5 that we know of. And they came to Middle-earth, and they landed near the Grey Havens, which, as I mentioned back in the Second Age, was one of the main elven areas.
Landed?
Mm-hmm.
Can we do a thing? Can we see if Guy can name all 5 wizards?
Tom Bombadil, Radagast, Gandalf, and the blue fuckers.
Not quite. It's all right. Hey, you got 2 of them.
2?
Yep.
He didn't.
Oh, Tom Bombadil's something else.
Yeah.
No, and Saruman.
Saruman.
Yeah.
Saruman.
Sorry, brain dead.
Oh, and the 2. Yeah. You got a vibe.
He got all of them technically in the end.
Well, he didn't name the 2 blue wizards. That's more my point.
Yeah, I don't know. No one knows the name of the 2 blue wizards. Do they even exist? Who knows?
They have names.
No, they don't. This is a lie.
I agree
here's
with Guy. They don't exist.
This is the worst thing because I haven't watched the movies, obviously, so I don't have contiguous knowledge of the thing. Like I can't string together events, but I have individual memes like throw it into the fire. No, like the things exist in my head. There's just nothing connecting them. It's like my sense of direction. I know where Jude's house is. I know where my house is. I don't know how the fuck to get between them.
Your brain, your Lord of the Rings, your folder in your brain is just a fuck ton of just JPEGs and no connection between them at all.
My brain has a whole fuckload of neurons, and goddamn, they're good neurons, but there's no synapses connecting them. There's no connection.
Yeah.
It's just occasionally someone will say something, and the neuron will just fire on its own. It's like, I don't know.
I'd like to make the fact that they're good neurons.
I got good neurons. Get out of my brain.
So, bringing it back to wizards, the order or the group of wizards is the Astari, or the Heron Estalion, and it is effectively a collection of Maya sent in mortal form as old men, and they're sent as messengers to the free peoples of Middle-earth in response to Sauron's resurgence during the Third Age. So do you remember Maya as opposed to the other individuals that we have?
Isn't it basically devils?
No. So the Valar are the gods, and the Maya are like the angels.
Yeah,
They're like the eagles are like Maya.
Yeah. So there's the Aenor, which are both Valar and Maya. And then within the Aenor, there are the Valar, which are the 13 gods. Well, sort of gods. And then the like hundreds of Maya, which are kind of like angelic beings.
Okay.
Cool.
So when they're Aya, they're both gods and Maya. So they're like, what's the difference between a Maya and a Aya? Wait, fuck.
Aenor is
that one. Aenor.
Aenor is just kind of a collective term for Maya and Valar.
Right.
Not all Aenor are Mayas, but all Mayas are Aenors.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all of you are human, but just because you're one gender doesn't mean you're a different gender as well, if that makes sense. A collective term as a whole, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
So shit's wild.
Not really? Okay, sure.
They're like they're all in the army, but there's different ranks in this army.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. So anyway, Munwë, if you remember him as one of the main Valar, he, in the Third Age, because obviously they've just been through the Second Age shenanigans where Númenor tried to siege the Valinor and the Undying Lands, and they were kind of pissed at men for that. But
Yes.
Munwë learnt during the Third Age, he saw Sauron was returning, even after they thought they killed him when they sunk Númenor. And he decided that the Valar needed to do something. So he summoned a council, and they decided that they would send 3 messengers to the land of Middle-earth, and these 3 messengers would have the job of warning and preparing / protecting the people, and to reassure, especially the elves in particular, that the Valar hadn't forgotten them, and that they were still active and trying to do what they could back in Valinor.
Wait, question. If they can sink an entire island, can't they just sink Mordor?
Well, it was technically Eru that did the destruction.
Okay. So they called on Big Daddy Eru to do the destruction.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Cannot they call on Big Daddy Era again, or is the debt getting too big?
Not quite.
Tired. He needs
It's
a nap.
less of a they call on him, and more he does what he wants when he wants, because he's omnipresent and separate from the world.
So they can kind of hope that he's going to do it, but you're just going to make plans in the side. It's like a shitty group project. You can hope that the person's going to do their work. You're going to just make plans around them not doing it.
Yeah, imagine like in our real world, if like it was a legit thing that like occasionally you would see God smite someone in the real world. Just because you see it happen occasionally, you're still going to plan, and all world leaders are still going to plan as if he's not going to, but if he does smite them, sweet, great, awesome.
Cool, nice,
but you can't rely on that.
Nice. It's like prepare
That's
for the
a really
worst.
good way
Hope
to
for the
put
best,
it.
prepare for the worst.
Yeah,
Exactly,
absolutely,
exactly.
100%. That makes
And
so
also
much
he's
sense.
like, it's
motto.
kind of the job of the Valar to do everything and not need his help. He's got other things he's doing in his like multi-dimensional world thing. So
Has he got other? He's an he's an omnipotent.
Listen, everyone's got a boss. Everyone's got a boss. This
well,
guy's got a boss.
supposedly
anything.
it is also theorized that he's created multiple other worlds that he's the big overlord god of as well. But that's another thing.
He's got side hustles.
Present and omnipotent.
He's
you
got
can do it all
side
at
hustles,
once.
Matt. It doesn't matter
You
if
have
you're
no
omnipotent.
limitations.
My fucking Etsy shop isn't going to manage itself. I've got side hustles.
Exactly.
He's got to set up his Patreon.
All right, so Manwë held this council of the Valar, and they were determining who they would send. And then after some convincing from the other Valar, he agreed on sending 5 Maiar rather than 3. So the first Maiar they selected was Coromo, who would take the mortal form of Saruman. They selected another, and then of course Olorin, who took the form of Gandalf.
Fuck yeah.
Iwendil, who took on the form of
the Gandalf.
Iwendil, who took on the form of Radagast. And then the final 2 were Alatar and Palandor, who became the Blue Wizards.
I fucking got him
What
right.
are their names? What are their names?
Alatar and Palandor.
That's their magic names. What are their human names?
It's still there. Like, Gandalf could still be referred to as Olorin. It's just that the elves named him Gandalf when he got to Middle-earth.
So Guy was right. They don't have names.
They do have names. It's Alatar and Palandor.
Sure. They don't have real names.
They do.
They have
anyway.
magic names.
Do they know their own magic names? Because why the fuck would you you've got the opportunity to give yourself a cool new name. Like, I'm moving to a new country, and they were like, well, what's your name for the paperwork? I'd be like, Max Power.
Why would you want to be called Max Power?
It's a fucking
It's-
Simpsons reference, Matt. Get on the level.
Yeah.
But
Max
okay.
Power.
Why would they? If you have a magic name given to you by the gods, and you came to you came down, and you're like, I am. What was Gandalf's name?
Olorin.
Elorin. Oh, shit.
I am Eloren. Valar. Hello.
Shut
I
up,
have taken
idiot, you're
mortal form to be-"
Gandalf.
Exactly. Like, nah. You look more like a Gandalf to me. What if you? Imagine you show up to a party and go, "Hi, my name's Jude." Nah, I'm over Jim. Nice to meet you, Jim. Have you met my friend Jim?
Well,
It seems like a dick move.
It's not a dick move.
It's
They're
kind
doing
of what's it. I'll get into it a little bit more, but you've got to bear in mind that when they get given these names, it's not just as simple as you have a name now. The names have very big meanings to them. So, for example, with Gandalf, because he's the only one that I really fully looked into very exact meanings of all the names and stuff. When the name Olorin is a Quenya word for dreamer or of dreams, because when he was the Maiar, he was one of the oldest and wisest of the Maiar. And that's kind of a big thing. We'll get into him a little bit more later. Whereas when he was given the name Gandalf, that supposedly at least comes from a Norse word, which means elf of the wand, or wand elf, because, men met Gandalf and thought he was an elf. Elves met him and thought he was a man. Obviously, he was neither.
No, I'm just thinking, what wand did he have? He definitely had a pipe, like a smoke pipe, and he's like, ooh,
He's
man
got
of
a
the wand.
staff, dude.
He's got his
He's
big
also
staff.
got a staff. He's also got his big staff, but I think he was carrying the smoke pipe.
Going back to
You've got
Matt's,
fond of that green.
going back to Matt's example of the classic party, you've just walked up and done some card tricks, and they're like, "Hey, it's Magic Guy."
This is true.
Hey, have you met my friend Magic Guy?
My name's Tom. Please don't. It's Magic Guy. How's it going, Magic Guy? You cool? You want some weed? That's the hobbits.
That's on some weed.
So
College parties be like.
the next part is a good description of the wizards, which comes. This is just a direct quote from the Unfinished Tales, so bear with me here. For with the consent of Eru, they sent messengers of their own high order, but clad in bodies as of men, real but not feigned, but subject to the fears and pains and weariness of earth, able to hunger and thirst and be slain, though because of their noble spirits they did not die, and aged only by the cares and labours of many long years. So, that is in essence what the wizards are. They are Maya, but put into the form of a mortal man. So they don't have access to all of the massive banks of knowledge that their Maya form would have. They have. So if you remember last time, I had a brief mention to the fact that while Gandalf, his Maya form, was present for the creation of the world, so that's how he knows a lot of things. Because he's in this mortal form, he doesn't have direct access to all of that knowledge. He has snippets and stuff that come up occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
have
is that
no
why-
memory of this place.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that why that scene is such a big deal?
Not kind of.
More detail when you know more about the world. Is it cooler?
Sort of, yeah.
Interesting.
So they still age. So Gandalf does age.
Yes, gradually.
Yes.
So was
and-
Gandalf like really young and Chad once, or was he always old?
No,
They
into the
were
world as
always
old
old.
men's. He said that. And
I
also, he
wanted-
didn't
I
actually
wanted
say
a Chad Gandalf.
Well, he didn't say that they aged. He said that they aged by them like wearing down. It's like if they get a cut, like you can get gnarly fingers from playing that bass, but like you're not gonna get wrinklier.
Yeah.
I just want a Chad Gandalf.
Can't have Chad Gandalf.
Young
He never
Chad
existed.
Gandalf.
Chad Gandalf doesn't exist.
Actually,
That's
I
what my
will
therapist
say,
says.
I will say, therapist Chad Gandalf doesn't exist. He can't.
I know.
Chad Gandalf.
Don't know. Fuck.
You shall not pass.
Oh no!
Say that.
No. It'd be more. You shall pass.
You shall pass. Ooh.
Ooh. Anyway, so fuck. What have I done? So you may be wondering. Oh god. So you may be wondering why these crazy powerful Maya, which are, as I mentioned last time, the Maya are capable of taking on any physical form. Like, for example, Sauron was able to take the form of the man Alatar, so it looked like the elf Alatar, which is what he used to seduce the elves and such. But he could also be big, giant death boy that you see in the movies. So the reason
I
that
love
they
Big Giant Death Boy.
Exactly. So the reason they took on these forms of old men when they could take literally any form they wanted, and also the reason why, as much as their Maya form would be incredibly powerful, you may notice that in the movies and the books and such, the wizards don't ever actually do any individual task that's that massive in the grand scheme of things.
They're really lazy.
No. Say, if you think the Balrog, which as Guy mentioned last time, the Balrog is an example of a Maya, and the one in Moria, for example, literally wiped out an entire civilization of dwarves on its own, because Maya are strong like that. And the reason for this is because the Valar were conscious that in the past, their glory of god status, if you will, had led to the elves kind of secluding themselves, because they were like, oh wow, we're just so far removed from these people, like look at them, they're literally gods. So they just kind of secluded themselves a little bit from it, and same happened with men and such.
I was gonna say, like, the elves have been like they're like god status on their own premise compared to the rest of them.
Compared to Maya, not really.
Compared to other races, the elves are like much better.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and they go like, wow, I see someone better than me. They're like, I'm so jealous. Oh my god. Like, what?
So
God,
It's not-
are they here to? Are the wizards there sort of to facilitate the normal happenings of things and like stop divine intervention? Because the Balrog was like something that the fucking company would not have been able to do anything about anyway, and so Gandalf was like, fuck.
Yeah, that is ultimately their main job, is to help along the world follow the pattern of Area's design, rather than get corrupted by Sauron and go in a different direction. So this was super, super important that they were sent back in this like weakened old men state. So the Astari were sent back in it, and they were also forbidden by the gods from just doing large displays of power. And they were also forbidden from taking any rule or authority. And this
didn't
is
really
why...
stop Gandalf when he really wanted to.
Yes and no.
Bonking.
Gandalf does have some sick fireworks.
He didn't. Doesn't he like? Didn't he bonk the king on the head and take charge?
He bonked
your battle stations.
return to your posts. But
Whatever.
that's That's the steward, and at that point, because he'd been corrupted by Sauron and gone crazy, so that was literally into it, because that was Sauron's whole thing for taking over Gondor, was first corrupting the steward, and then once the steward was corrupted, he had free reign to attack Gondor, so by Gandalf stopping the steward from doing crazy stuff was him stopping Sauron, if that makes sense.
I guess.
So it's a battle on two levels. Gandalf's fighting with the angelic forces. Well, not angelic, but divine forces, and everyone else is just kind of fucking around.
That is weird, because there are, like, Sauron isn't like restricting his own abilities. So all the wizards are the Valar are fighting with one hand tied behind their back.
Well,
They
no,
are. They literally are.
Are they? But
the
like,
Maya,
'cause the thing is,
the wizards are. Yeah.
Why would they do that?
Because the point is, like, I thought the point was that they're not allowed to do it in, like, an unnecessary display of power. Like, they're not allowed to fuck around and become king and do what he's doing. But when it's threatening them, they're allowed to retaliate.
Well, yeah, they do, obviously. They're forbidden from large displays of power, but when push comes to shove, they will do it. For example, Gandalf taking down the Balrog. Because that's
what I
something
was
that
thinking.
even as a Maya, because even as Maya come, the Balrog is pretty damn strong. So even if he was in his full Maya form, Aloran may have had to struggle against the Balrog. So yeah, that was a pretty big thing for him to do. But anyway, it was important in the eyes of the Valar, at least, that all the wizards appear humble and weak, and they were bidden to persuade and advise men and elves rather than trying to force them to do anything.
They come down in Maya form as, be not afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas they come down in form of...
to advise.
Yeah, exactly. And they're old men, which get into courts, become friends with everyone, because they're kind of nice and stuff and noble.
I thought the form of old men was because Tolkien was going to be like, old men, they took the form of it because old men are just so wise and so trustworthy, and it was just Tolkien jerking himself off.
Not quite.
I'm so trustworthy and nice.
And always punctual.
Yes. The second thing with the Asari, there's the Asari themselves, which is one order, the wizards. There is actually a second council that forms I think it's kind of halfway in the Third Age, and it's very much a Middle-earth focused thing, where the Asari had to focus on the world as a whole. The White Council was very focused in Middle-earth. Sorry, this is the White Council, is this other council, and it contains Elrond, the Half-Elven, Galadriel, Lady of Lothlorien, Gandalf, and Saruman, who's the leader.
All the cool people.
Yep, and they were particularly... Because the Astari were meant to protect from Sauron, but the White Council were the ones that were completely devoted to opposing Sauron.
This is like the Illuminati forming.
Kinda, yeah. If you want to think of it that way. And this was, because Galadriel and Elrond, obviously, two of the most powerful elves on Middle-earth, and Galadriel was obviously a sorceress in her own right and very, very powerful. And it was seen by the wizards that the elves were going to be the ones that had to fight Sauron, because no one really thought men would be capable of it, because they were aware of the fact that men had lost their kings and Isildur had become corrupted and such. So, like Elrond says at the very start of the movies, there is no strength left in men. And then it comes to Aragorn to try and prove them wrong. But anyway, so yeah, they very much saw it as, well, shit, the elves have got to do everything. So they formed the White Council. So we're going to move on now to the individual members of the Astari. So the first one is Coromir, aka Saruman.
Coromir.
Yes. So he is sent by the...
Saruman the White abandoned reason for madness.
Yes, that quote.
Sorry.
So he's sent by the Valar Aeoli.
Aeoli.
Aeoli, yes.
Look,
Aeoli.
It's Aule.
My favorite sauce.
Yuli, or whatever.
Yuli.
Close enough.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And
Aeoli.
he is the greatest and most powerful of the wizards, Saruman. And his name and... what's the word? The translation is of Saruman is literally man of skill.
He's a fucking cool dude.
He is man of skill.
Yes.
There's a
it's
guy at
like-
my work whose nickname is Ledge, and he's one of the best like people for replen, and like he's really quick at doing all his stuff, putting stuff away, and everyone just calls him Ledge. I know he has a name, I don't know what it is, so everyone just calls him Ledge. So I'm assuming it's a similar deal here.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is like it's like Man of Steel, but Man of Skill.
Yes. God damn it. So there is a good quote from Aragorn in Two Towers, which it just gives you a nice little summary of Saruman. So once he was as great as his fame made him. His knowledge was deep, his thought was subtle, his hands were marvellously skilled, and he had a power over the minds of others. The wise he could persuade, and the smaller folk he could daunt. That power he certainly still keeps. There are not many in Middle-earth that I would say were safe, if they were left alone to talk with him. Even now he has suffered a defeat. Gandalf, Elrond, and Galadriel, perhaps now that his wickedness is laid bare, but very few others. So,
I don't like that quote that no one can be alone with him. Saruman,
I mean, his hands are skilled.
His hands are skilled. I don't like those quotes together. Saruman the White, stay away from the hobbits.
it's more relating to
through
his manipulation and power of word. Is more what that's relating to.
His hands are skilled.
He's gonna fucking throw a right hook, kill you.
Oh my god. Equal rights
Okay.
and equal lefts.
His hands are skilled. Come on.
Come on, yo. Catch these Saruman the White hands. Catch these hands.
All right.
I don't need no magic. Catch
All right,
these hands.
I'm going to continue. So he's the most powerful of the Astari as their leader, and he was sent by Eöl the Smith, who is the Valar. Eöl is the creator of the substance that makes up the world. So think rock, stone, metals. That is what this dude is the Valar of.
That's kind of cool.
And the Silmarillion speaks of him taking delight in all feats of craft, no matter the size. So this is specifically focusing on the Valar that Saruman is connected to. This Valar is also the one that created the dwarves in secret. Though
Unsurprising.
though he was nearly forced to kill them because Eru discovered that one of his Valar had made a race in secret, which they totally weren't meant to do. But then Eru says that he can spare them because they were living things and he'd created them now, so he wasn't going to make him kill his own creation. But there was a point, and there's some really messed up art actually, where he's like this really sad god with this massive warhammer just sadly walking up to these dwarves who were looking all happy.
Oh my god. Poor dwarves.
Listen, I'm fucking so angry that you bought a dog, but goddamn, I can't get rid of him now.
Oh my
Literally,
god.
literally,
It's the
yeah.
same. It's the same thing, but it's like he's got empty threats. All right,
Yeah.
you got to show who's the daddy. Who's the?
I was gonna say,
who's
yeah.
the
Now
pants
that one
in the house?
race, like you see your brother going and buying a dog, and the parents are like, goddamn, I'm really angry, but this
He's
dog's really
setting-
cute. You're gonna buy a dog too? Fuck yeah.
He's setting the expectation at that. Come on, Eru. You got to set hard rules.
Yep.
Gandalf's gonna get a dog.
I do love the fact that that dwarves were never meant to be made, but they were anyway. They're an accident.
Yep. So Eöl had this distinct similarity to Melkor or Morgoth, because Morgoth was very creative as he created many, many, many different races. And this kind of begins the mirroring between Morgoth and Eöl, which of course leads through to Saruman and Sauron, who are mayor of those two Valar.
Interesting.
Begins that kind of thing there. So, more about Saruman. As I said, he was the leader of the Astari, and he was known for having a great mastery of magic. But perhaps his most unique power was his speech and way with words. It is said that the White Wizard could bend all but the absolute strongest of minds to his will. And we see this in Lord of the Rings, when through a combination of speech and magic, he completely enslaves Theoden, King of Rohan, to his will, and corrupts his mind.
Sounds
This-
like fucking Professor X.
Yeah. This power is also what allows him to cause trouble in the Shire, even after being stripped of his magic by Gandalf. Because if you've read the books, you'll know that Saruman takes over the Shire in the end of the story, and then the hobbits get home, and the Shire's been turned into a factory place, basically.
That's kind of sick.
Yeah, well, it's because it's the whole little reflective thing of when Tolkien came back from the First World War. He got home, and the house in the neighborhood he grew up in had been replaced with factories to make tanks and stuff. So he was like,
Oh no.
So it's kind of it. Yeah, that's the whole reason. That's like that entire story arc with the books where the hobbits get home after saving the world and their home's been ruined. That's kind of what that's meant to be. So
sad.
Yeah, it is.
As a question, because it seems to be very loose. Is there like a defined like here's some things that magic can do, or is it sort of a catch-all of like it can be used to influence people, it can be used to defeat beasts, and
It is very much a soft magic system.
okay, right, cool.
The
Just checking.
softest of magic systems.
Yeah, literally, when you're thinking examples of soft magic systems, Lord of the Rings is at the top of the list because it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very important.
Sort of a wish for what you want, and it might, and it will bend.
Yeah, there's very
Okay, cool.
loose rules.
They're as soft as Saruman's skilled hands.
No, his hands are hardened because he's beaten ass.
Anyway, so even in defeat, Sauron is a dangerous foe, which Gandalf says in Return of the King, because even after he's been defeated, he's still got his speech and his way with words, which is very, very persuasive. And
Hitler.
he lives, eventually, after travelling for some time, he starts living in Isengard, specifically in the Tower of Orthanc, which was once a great fortress of Gondor, but obviously after Gondor started to decline and became ruled by stewards, the steward Baron appointed Saruman as the warden of the tower. And in this tower, Saruman discovered one of the lost Palantir, which he kept to himself. And do you remember a little bit about, I mentioned the Palantir from the last episode?
Guy. I know what they are from the movie, but...
I don't.
That's right. They're the crystal balls that let people talk to each other, and
I'm
Numenor
aware
used
of
to.
what that is.
Yeah. The Numenor had them as a gift, and then the Numenorians that escaped had a bunch of them throughout Arnor and Gondor as their way of keeping contact between the two realms. But then during the Last Alliance, Sauron stole one of the Palantir. So when Saruman discovers a lost Palantir, that opens up the potential for connection between Saruman and Sauron later on, which we'll get to.
weren't all accounted for.
Yes. So even while he was great and noble, because it's very heavily emphasized a number of times that he was a very, very good, very, really lawful good sort of noble individual. But even then, he had a very bitter rivalry with Gandalf, which we'll get to later. And final note is he travelled far into the east many times before he settled down in Isengard.
He went east.
Yes, he did.
Don't go east in the
So,
Yep.
the next
Make that
one,
clear.
the next one is Oloran Gandalf, or Mithrandir. So he
The
is
best of them. The best
Yes.
of the boys.
also known as the Grey Pilgrim. Gandalf was the only one of the wizards who never strayed from his original quest and continued to do what he was sent back to do and help men, elves, and dwarves fight Sauron and prepare themselves.
I mean, surely he strayed a little bit.
He's not a bad boy. Come on, we
Nope,
like a bad boy.
he never strays. He is
What
the
about
only
the
one that
fight?
doesn't.
Like the fireworks can't be part of fighting with elves and men. Like,
Well, yeah, but he's doing that while he's doing the other things, whereas the other ones.
He's still being a diplomat.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
still case.
Exactly.
okay.
And Círdan, if you remember him as being the super, super old elf that was the shipmaster in the Grey Havens. Do you remember him? The one that was, like, ridiculously old? And before the Last Alliance, Gil-galad gave Círdan one of the rings, the Elven rings, specifically Narya, the Ring of Fire. When Gandalf arrives, Círdan sees him and sees the purity in Gandalf and gives him the ring, saying that he would need it in times to come. So, yeah, that's a fun little thing. And Gandalf was said to be the second of the wizards, as opposed to Sauron.
Yeah, Gandalf always the good boy. Like you see, like in like I feel like Saruman. If there was like a love triangle, Saruman is the bad boy of the group, and Gandalf's the good guy that they should have gone for all along.
Yep, exactly.
I also appreciate that you say like strayed from their original task, and that sounds so fucking ominous. But correct me if I'm wrong, but Radagast basically just chills in the forest.
Hey, we haven't got to Radagast yet.
I'm just saying, like, strays from their task sounds so like ominous and they've become dark. No, they're just, some of them are just
Hey,
chilling.
I'm pretty sure it's straight from
Some
the
of
Bible.
them are just lazy.
The two blue guys just fucking.
They just disappear. That is fair. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to them. We'll get to them.
So Aloran as the Maya, he was a Maya under the service of Manwë, who is the Lord of the Valor. And of course, Manwë is also the Lord of the Eagles. Thus why Gandalf has a bit of a connection with the Eagles, because the Valor that he's connected to is the Lord of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're like cousins.
Yeah, sure. So while in his Maya form, Aloran is associated with fire and light, which of course is an interesting little tidbit, because if you remember when Gandalf's doing his most iconic moment confronting the Balrog, his quote is, "You cannot pass. I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. Dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. Go back to the shadow, you shall not pass," etc.
And then he pulls out fire swords.
Yeah, he has all sorts of stuff along that kind of fire and light. And of course, so yeah, when he's associated with fire and light, the flame of Arnor is specifically refers to the light of the sun in this world. That's kind of a similar term for that. So it's a little more complicated in the like deep lore, but to put it simply, yeah, that's why he does all of that sort of saying that he is the servant of the secret fire and such, because yeah, he is literally, when he was Maya, he had connection to fire and light.
What is the sun in Lord of the Rings?
Sorry?
Because the world's flat,
What is the sun?
so it can't be an orbiting body.
Well, the world was flat. Now it is round.
Yeah, but what the sun and moon cycle probably existed when it was flat, so you've still got to explain for back then. Just because we've fixed the issue doesn't mean we don't know how it worked back. What's going on? What's the sun?
Gods and stuff.
Yeah, cool. I expected as much.
Yeah.
They're like, it's like Apollo. They're like pulling the sun across the sky in a fucking chariot. I don't know.
Yeah, epic. Cool.
So,
Question though.
yeah.
Oh shit! I think it's gone from my mind. Guys, distracted. Oh no. Okay, it's not really a question. It's kind of like a statement. I've realized in the movies, Gandalf uses light a fuck ton. Mm-hmm. Like when he's scaring off the Nazguls, he uses light to scare them off. Mm-hmm. When he is look east to the first light in the morning on the third day.
Yep.
That's Gandalf. Gandalf is the first light. It's not actually the first light. He is the light.
Exactly.
Oh my god, that makes so much
in
more
his
sense.
Maya form, he is directly connected to fire and light. It's a really important thing.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And even when you think about almost every power that he shows off can kind of be related to that. If you go into The Hobbit, when he does...
He breaks the rock and lets the light in to get the troll.
Exactly.
What?
He breaks the rock, light comes through, gets the trolls. In the movie, when he saves the hobbits from the Goblin Town situation, he does a big light explosion. In the book, it is literally just a big flash of light rather than an explosion. But even then, fire and light explosion, that still works. So basically all of his powers, and even when he does You Shall Not Pass and all that stuff, he calls upon all of these fire and light related things, slams his staff down. What do you see? A big flash of white light. So yeah, literally everything about him is relating to. Yeah.
It all makes sense.
So there you go. But so more stuff about Gandalf. He never settled, and he was always wandering. Thus, he got the name the Grey Pilgrim, because where the other wizards eventually settled down somewhere, he just never did. But after visiting the Shire, he developed a particular fondness for the hobbits and would frequently go to their midsummer festivals and display his fireworks, which, once again, fireworks. Fire and light.
No.
Oh my god, no way. Holy shit, fire and light. What?
And this fondness of halflings led him to Bilbo, which of course led to all the events through The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, etc. So yes,
Jesus
Gandalf.
Christ.
Oh
the whole
God.
thing. It's all connected.
It's all
It
connected.
is. It
He's a
is.
disturber of the peace.
He really is a disturber of the gun and
Disturber
peace.
of the peace. Because he's all...
Yep.
But even okay, this may be a bit of a stretch, but the smoking weed, that's fire.
I
Oh my
mean,
god, that is a stretch, yeah.
it is a
You're
stretch,
right.
but you're kind of not wrong at the same time.
Fire and light.
Oh my god, that's
I am the
crazy.
Lord of
I
Fire
never
and
thought
Light, and I'm going to use it to smoke this dank plant.
Well, I suppose that's the question of how he lights his lights his pipe every time.
He uses his godly powers to light his doobie.
Now, kids, make sure you don't use those godly powers for anything you're not supposed to. Just help the elves and men do their shit. Okay, cool? Yeah, all right, Dad. I'm gonna fucking light this blunt though.
Yep.
You promise you won't go lighting blunts with the halfling
As he's walking
Promise.
off. Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
So, next one is Eowendil, otherwise known as Radagast the Brown.
Oh boy.
Yes. So he's
This guy wore the
originally...
brown pants.
So he was originally from... he's a Maya, originally from the Valar Yavanna, who is the Queen of the Earth. And she is very much nature goddess, as you would expect from someone connected to Radagast.
We love Radagast.
And he arrived with Gandalf, whereupon the Noldor elves gave him the name of Radagast. And he...
That's a cool name.
It is.
I would not be mind
Along
that name.
with Gandalf, those two... actually, the thing that I should have mentioned before, but I kind of forgot to actually, it's... Once again, I actually couldn't find the quote of this exactly, so don't, it might actually be wrong, but I do remember seeing somewhere a lot previously in the past, and there's kind of loose mentions to it, that the wizards arrived in 2 waves. The first 3 to arrive were Saruman and the Blue Wizards, and then they went far into the east and kind of disappeared, and everyone was like, oh, I guess that's the wizards gone. And then as second wave, Radagast and Gandalf arrived together.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then eventually Saruman came back from the east and he kind of settled in the middle of Middle-earth and stuff, yeah. Radagast, like Gandalf, settled in the west. He never went far east at all. And he eventually settled down in Greenwood, which of course gets renamed to Mirkwood eventually. And he sort of gave up on his whole quest of elves and men and instead just became more interested in animals and trees of that forest in particular.
How long did it take him? Because did he even try it, or did he go into the forest and just one walk and be like,
Well,
you know what, fuck it, I'm staying here.
as you'll see in a sec, he sort of gives up on the quest, but he also... You'll see. I think he's just not very good, but we'll get to that.
He's just an idiot. They said, I think he
He
accidentally
lied on his
got picked.
resume.
He lied on his resume.
Yeah, look. Well, it's also one of those things where, with the
picked the wrong
thing that I
guy
find
by
really
accident.
funny,
Oh, shit.
the Valar Yavanna is actually the wife of Eol, the Saruman's Valar. So I really just can't help the feeling of, because also the next thing I'm going to say is that Saruman never liked Radagast. He really despised him, even in the early days when they were
Why?
still Maya. So I
They're like
really...
brothers?
Nope. They're just...
Stepbrothers?
They're just 2 Maya that are underneath husband and wife Valar. So I really like
They're
the idea
stepbrothers.
that Saruman was selected by his Valar, and he's all high and mighty, noble, gonna lead the wizards, and then his Valar's wife was like, oh, take Radagast with you. And he's like, no, why?
If you're gonna go out to Middle Earth, you gotta take your brother with you.
Have y'all ever seen?
Mom.
Have y'all ever seen Book of Mormon?
No.
There's a really good scene at the start. The main character's like, I'm getting sent away on a mission. I'm so proud. The day's come. And then you see this dork in the background. And he's coming up. It's like, I'm assigned with you. I'm coming with you. And the main character's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
That is the most crystal clear example of what happened here.
Yeah.
It is great.
He's like, I've been selected to go on this cool mission. We're going somewhere cool. And this fucking dork.
Yeah.
Sorry, Book
So
of Mormon's a
have
good
I.
fucking musical.
Yep.
Oh
So anyway,
That's
most...
Radagast
Yes.
didn't even want to come in the first
Yep.
place.
Yeah. He gets selected, and most of what we know about Radagast's character, sadly, comes from the Hobbit movies, because, those movies. But we know that he was... yeah, this is where we kind of get into... so while we don't have, a very good knowledge of his actual character and appearance from the books, because just there's not loads written on him. One thing that we do know about him, which is a bit unfortunate and kind of shows he may have not so much strayed from his original quest as just kind of screwed up. He was actually fooled by Saruman for a time, as when Saruman was searching for the One Ring, because in secret Saruman wanted to take the ring for himself. Radagast actually helped him because he didn't realize Saruman had turned evil. So Saruman's like, hey Radagast, you know how you're good with birds and animals and stuff? Could you help me find this thing so we can beat Sauron? Radagast's like, sure thing, brother, I gotcha.
Sorry, Mom.
And
he
then,
passed him the controller. He passed the controller. Can you help me with this letter?
yeah. And the really unfortunate thing as well, which happens in the books, but it doesn't get touched on in the movies, when Gandalf goes to Saruman and gets captured and everything, in the movies they portray it as Gandalf, I must see the leader of my order. He is both wise and powerful. He'll know what to do. In the books, it's actually Radagast who goes to Gandalf at the request of Saruman and gives Gandalf an invitation from Saruman to come see him.
Nice.
Which, of course, then leads to Gandalf's capture. So it's really unfortunate. Radagast is just kind of used as a tool a little bit.
From what I'm hearing, Radagast is like the Wormtail of the wizards.
See, I was thinking he's like the little brother. He's just sort of like, hey, mom said you had to vacuum the living room.
Mom said you had to go see her. Okay, if you get locked
why
up,
do you get to play Xbox while I've got to vacuum the living? Mom said, I don't know, man.
Yeah, you've got to
go do it, squirt.
You've got to. Mom says you've got to settle the conflict between the elves and the humans. You just got.
But why do you get to take over the lands while I'm doing that? What do you?
Hey! I don't pick the rules. I get to play with animals, and you have to do the hard stuff. I don't.
Yeah. So when you consider all these things, you see why he just kind of fucked off and went and did his own thing in the forest with animals and stuff.
Can we agree? Radagast. The Hobbit movies were not great, but Radagast was one of the best parts of them.
Hey, 100%.
I love him in that movie.
Do the wizards have any sort of influence over the world, or did he just happen to find some really cool, sick rabbits? Like, did he have influence over that, or were they just cool rabbits?
See, that's the thing, because
the Rustabel rabbits.
Because that is purely a thing specifically from the movies. Okay, there isn't lots of deep information on that. I'm afraid.
Okay. That's all right.
Which, like I say, that's the unfortunate thing. A lot of what we have to take on about Radagast, even down to his appearance, that really does all just come from the movies. It's not like with the other wizards where we have their book description versus their movie description, although admittedly they're pretty damn close because Lord of the Rings, they put in effort to that kind of thing, obviously. But yeah, we don't have lots to go off from the books from Radagast.
Did the Tolkien clan approve of the Hobbit movies?
They didn't approve of Lord of the Rings, man.
That's fair.
Christopher Tolkien's gone on record saying he thinks they're some of the worst movies ever.
Roasted.
And that they butchered his father's creation. But anyway.
My daddy wrote a good book and you all fucked it up.
Yeah. But the interesting
thing... Those kind of people can't be fucking pleased.
Yeah. And that's why they've been so tight on the rights and why they've refused to sell any rights of the rest of the universe ever. And it's just that they're kind of salty that the rights to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were sold by Tolkien before he died, so they can't do anything about it.
It's like Dr. Seuss with all of his books and Cat in the Hat movie.
Yeah.
Y'all know about that? They made one movie out of his books and they were just like, yeah, never again, thanks.
Well, it was the Lorax movie.
The Lorax movie was different.
Because that thing is an abomination to mankind, so I'm glad.
A lot of them are bad. It's fine. Anyway.
I have a whole rant about the fucking
Do you have any
Lorax
more
movie.
cool stuff about the good Radagast boy? Does he have any other fun stuff?
That is the end of Radagast, I'm afraid, but that means that it's time for the Blue Wizards.
Please, God, tell me
Where did Radagast end up? Like, what did he do with
Dead.
Lord of the Rings? Like, what did he do?
During the War of the Ring, he kind of didn't...
Yeah.
Outside of trying to help Saruman and then screwing up and leading Gandalf to get captured. He does do one more thing after Gandalf gets captured, because as you know, Radagast has connection with animals. He actually is the one that talks to the leader of the Eagles and gets them to help save Gandalf, and then also because they're good friends with Gandalf, they're like, oh yeah, we'll save him, and then they fly over and save him from Orthanc.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So he doesn't do it, and he fixes. He sets it as a net neutral kind of.
He does.
I'll be honest. He does more than fucking Blue Wizards do.
He 100% does. Well, possibly. I'll get into one of the fun theories about the Blue Wizards. He might actually do more positive than the Blue Wizards, but we'll get into that. The Blue Wizards, Alatar and Palandor. Alatar was selected by Orome, who is the Valor of the Hunt. And then after he was selected, he asked if his fellow Maiar Palandor could go with him, and they were like, sure, okay.
That's so good.
on this
Sorry,
adventure?
but there's so many times in this book where you can parallel it to like a school project.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This entire thing is a school
wants to be part of
project.
this group too.
This entire thing is a school project.
Yeah.
That's what I see it as.
Well,
So
especially
you have-
especially when you consider that it was meant to be Munway's original plan was to send 3 messengers, and then just through this sort of shit, they got it up to 5 because his wife's like, "Hey, you've got to take my boy with you as well," and then one of the Blue Wizards is going, "Oh, he's coming too."
So, what you just describe what the Blue Wizards do, and then at the end we'll describe which role who is for each for the school project.
Sure, okay. So when they first arrived with Saruman, they were, oh wow, wizards, what? This is crazy. And then they disappeared into the east with Saruman, and they're never seen or heard from again. There are a huge amount of theories about what happened to them. It is like one of the most commonly fan theorized things that there's just so many different things of what could have happened. One of the main takeaway is that whatever happened, we know that they failed, because Tolkien's written word is that only Gandalf didn't fail. The rest of them strayed from the path. So that is all we have to go
Radagast
off.
was just fucking lazy.
Radagast went to animals, kept himself contained in trees. He was like, so you know how you wanted me to advise men and elves? Well, I'm going to advise animals, okay?
I'm going to advise the squirrels and the eagles to make friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I know the brief said that we had to do 400 words and it had to be about, the history of the World War II. But I really, really do like, just sort of talking about, the history of China.
What if I did 4,000 words on trains?
Yeah,
Something
literally.
else. I just
is
don't like
this
it.
is history
Man,
class,
World War
so-
II's so violent. They're so violent. I just want to talk about some chill shit.
Yeah. So, they disappeared into the east, and some of the theories that I've got, one of them is that they went into the east because another thing as well, in the east, there are factions of men who obviously join Sauron and fight alongside him. So there's the Kingdom of Rune, which is the Easterlings. They're the ones, if you remember in Lord of the Rings, Matt, you see them kind of walking toward the Black Gate in like the gold armor and stuff.
Oh, those look cool. Those guys.
Yeah,
look really
Easterlings. I'll probably do an episode one day on the stuff because they do some really other cool stuff in the War of the Ring that you just don't see in the movies and stuff. It's not a main focus. And then, of course, there is also the Haradrim, who are the big elephant rider people from the southeast area.
That still only counts as one.
And they're also known as the Southrons sometimes.
Giant. That is the most OP thing. Giant fucking elephants.
Yep. So one of the main kind of assumed theory is that the wizards went to each of the kingdoms of men in the east, and then they just kind of tried to convince them not to join Sauron, and then they were either killed or just locked away because they were like, no, we're joining Sauron, soz. So ultimately they failed. But some of the other fun theories, one of them that's surprisingly popular, but I don't think is likely at all personally, because just other things. Some people think that Saruman actually killed them, and that was his first evil deed.
That's what I've heard. That's the
but-
theory I heard.
But I personally, and I think Tolkien would disprove that personally, because it's emphasized so often how good and noble Saruman is until he gets corrupted by the Palantir. So like, likelihood of him doing that is pretty low, because the whole point, like when Gandalf comes back as Gandalf the White, that is what Saruman was originally when he first came into Middle-earth. So, like, if you can't imagine Gandalf the White killing these two fellow wizards just cause, then it seems unlikely, you know what I mean?
It's some fucking Cain. It's some Cain and Abel shit, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Would
His brain's
was it?
failing.
My brain has just failed. Sorry, someone drove by that I know. That's on my window.
No brain.
My brain. But like, would Saruman, if he's good and noble, if he knew they were out there, like slaved or in like captured or something, would he leave them out there?
Well, that's the thing, because the other thing as well, they presumably, because you ended up, ultimately, when they all get into their positions, you had Gandalf in the far west, Saruman kind of middle west, Radagast kind of northwest, and then two wizards out to the east, so they're kind of nicely spread out as a whole. So in theory, he went over there to see everything, and then after he was done seeing everything, he left the other two there to kind of stick to their assignment, and then came back.
He's like, now do the work. You've got a checklist of what you guys need to get done.
Yeah.
Get that done. I'll be back to check up on you.
Yeah. And the other theory, which I think is more likely personally, the Eastlings and the Southrons, you don't necessarily see them in story and in movie, but it's said a few times in the lore and such that those factions of men actually have spellcasters among them, individuals who are gifted in the dark arts, kind of similar to Sauron and his forces.
Lord Voldemort.
And one of the theories, which I think is more likely, is that these wizards went to the east, befriended those men, tried to convince them that Sauron was bad, but then in turn themselves got corrupted by Sauron, and then they're the ones that taught these men magic and such.
They taught them how to be Lord Voldemort.
Yeah, sure. That's one of the theories that I think is slightly more possible, but fucking who knows. But we're meant to not know, so, you know.
When Tolkien was still kicking, was he did he have a cheeky little like, oh, who knows? You can guess what happened to the Blue Lizards, and they're just like, do you know? He's like, oh, sure, but like, yeah, it's up to you. Do you know? Or did he literally just go like, I have no fucking clue?
It was more just kind of a.
He's so thorough with everything else that I can't believe that he didn't write something or have an idea of what happened.
Yeah,
a plan for
yeah. Whether or not it, like, honestly, because it's a very important thing to know as well that he's like, there is still thousands and thousands of pages of scripture that Tolkien has written that his son's still composing into books. So like the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales, for example, they weren't actually written as books. They were just loose scripture that his son put together because he was like, hey, if I group this thing with that thing, I can actually make a cohesive book out of this.
But surely, if like this has been like a thing, there were 5 wizards. The 2 wizards do nothing other than disappear. They have to be there for a reason. You don't write them into a story for no reason.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
And then, but if he had a plan, surely the son would be able to look through scriptures and go and then tell the world, oh, by the way, guys, I know you really wanted to know.
Yeah, but maybe the son wants to actually put some thought into it. I'm having very good tableau being created in my mind of, you know, Tolkien with his feet up on the desk, sort of sorting through some pages and creating a nicely bound sort of leather manuscript, laying it down, sending it off to his publisher. We get sort of like a time fade as it, you know, the office greys, dust gathers. We see his son scuttle in on all fours and just start fucking just grabbing everything and fucking just trying to like scrummage it all up. Walk into his office one day, it's like a fucking conspiracy theory now. There's strings between the pages. He's
so this thing connects to that thing, and that thing connects. Yeah.
We can put this together.
So, yes, it is possible, I guess, that Tolkien... There could actually be an answer written somewhere, but we don't have direct access to a confirmed answer, which, because of that, because of Tolkien being so thorough with everything, and everything being directly connected and having purpose, that's one of the reasons that I think the most likely thing to have happened to them is that they got corrupted by Sauron and started teaching the men in the East magic and stuff. Because otherwise it just seems weird there will be mention of those men having magic suddenly when it's like not really shown as a thing for men to be magical at all during the Third Age. So that's one of the reasons I think it's the most likely thing, but also who knows. So the final thing I'll quickly say on the wizards before I give you guys a chance to assign the wizards to a position in group rating.
I've been thinking.
Quick question. I was just trying to think about it. Why would Saruman leave them out there and not say anything to anyone if they knew they were corrupted?
Who knows?
Because they're doing their job.
They're doing their job.
That's the thing. It is also specifically said that Saruman never spoke of them again.
I mean, yeah, he doesn't have to deal with them. They're doing their shit. They're not helping him. They're not an issue. And it's like managing 2 wizards would be a fucking pain in the ass.
That's fair. That's fair. Isn't that his job though?
No, but it's like you need to print some assignments and you get handed like one of those ones that you see at uni or at like schools and stuff where it's like a $4,000-$5,000 printer. It's like, I don't fucking need this to do the job that I'm gonna do. I'm fine with my printer, okay? That can keep doing its job. It's useful for some stuff, but it's doing its job.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's what I think.
So the Saruman Saruman and Gandalf. So as Sauron resurfaced, Saruman, who, as I mentioned, he was connected to the valor of the smith and the craft and such. And so because of that, Saruman had a big interest in craft and that sort of thing. Thus, if you know, in the movies, he creates the Uruk-hai and creates all of their armor and legions and such. Yeah, he's pretty connected to craft. So he very much envied Sauron and his power and the One Ring in particular. So this is different to Gandalf, who, when Manwë suggested, "Hey, Olorin, I'm gonna send you because you're gonna be one of my 3 messengers," he actually refused to go, because he said he was too scared of the ring and Sauron, and he was just terrified of the concept of it all, so he couldn't possibly go. But then Manwë obviously said the whole thing of, because you're scared, that's why I want you to go, so you can get over this fear.
Nice.
But then we see that fear carry across into the movies and the books when Frodo he's like, take it, and he's like, no, I can't touch it, because he's like literally terrified of the thing. Whereas Saruman, who wasn't scared of it, he
Don't
envied.
make me. Don't tempt me, Frodo.
Exactly. Whereas Saruman he envied it and he very much wanted it for himself. He wasn't scared at all. Going into some of the stuff that happens between Saruman, Gandalf, and Sauron, Gandalf actually discovered Sauron in Dol Guldur quite a long time before, even because the events of The Hobbit happen, and you guys obviously have seen The Hobbit, so you know roughly that the whole necromancer thing in Dol Guldur and such, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yes, that it kind of does, for lack of a better word, screw up the timeline a little bit from the books, because by the time of The Hobbit in the books, Gandalf has long discovered Sauron in Dol Guldur.
Okay.
It's just, so there's rumours of a necromancer, and it's kind of the whole rumours of a necromancer. It's kind of just before the rumours of a necromancer that the wizards are actually sent back, because the Valar know that this is Sauron resurging. So, go figure. Then Gandalf comes back, he discovers Sauron in Dol Guldur, and then Gandalf brought it to the White Council and says, hey, can we, stop this, because this is Sauron. But then Saruman, who was in charge of the White Council and had a bitter rivalry with Gandalf, because, among other things, one of the things that really bothered him is that when Gandalf got to Middle-earth, one of the elves gave him the Great Elven Ring of Power, which is an amazing feat of craft, and was like, you're gifted, you're special, and Saruman's like, bitch, I'm meant to be the special one.
I want to be in charge.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the contributing factors.
So Saruman was really good, but he's fucking envious of all the attention Gandalf gets.
Yeah, that is the one flaw that he had. He's a super lawful, good, noble individual, but the one flaw that he has is being very envious of Gandalf, which kind of leads to his downfall, because being envious of that, wanting more power, is then what leads him to be corrupted. But anyway,
as we learnt from Keys to the Kingdom, envy
Yes.
is a sin, guys.
Exactly. We're learning things
I'm
here.
sorry. I thought there was going to be more to that statement, but envy is a sin. It's just the whole thing. Yeah, guys, envy is a sin. Keep that. Think about that. Let that turn.
I knew
over
we
in your
did 3
mind.
episodes of Keys to the Kingdom for a reason.
Yeah,
so
it's
we
all to
could
teach
learn what
us.
the 7 deadly sins are.
Yep,
Yeah, basically.
clearly. So, anyway, Gandalf brought this to the White Council and said, yo, can we stop this Dol Guldur thing and destroy the Necromancer? And then Saruman said no to the White Council getting involved, and he completely discredits Gandalf to the White Council. Because in truth, Saruman knew what was going on, but he wanted to delay stopping Sauron, because his thought was, if Sauron gets stronger, then the ring will reveal itself. Because his original thought was, if Sauron gets stronger, a ring gets revealed, and then with the ring we can properly destroy Sauron. Whereas if we just destroy him in Dol Guldur, he's not going to die, because he's a Maya, he'll just come back. And that is literally what happened. As Sauron gets stronger, the ring reveals itself and becomes known to Bilbo, and Bilbo takes it out into the world. But because as we know, the ring has a mind of its own, and because of sensing that Sauron's getting stronger, it sees the chance to get a new bearer, because it's been with Gollum for ages and has been dormant the whole time. But then as soon as it sees the chance to get out of the Misty Mountains, it takes it, because it's awakening.
Does it? Okay, the ring has a mind of its own. Is the ring like an extension of its creator, of Sauron? Or is it like its own sort of thing of like, I just want to be wanted? I'm a little nasty, shitty boy.
It's kind of... You could almost compare it to, if you want to go back to Keys of the Kingdom, what's the Will lady that's all together?
Dame Primus.
Dame Primus. It's kind of like Dame Primus and her separate bits. They're two parts of the same whole that are very different individuals, but also kind of wanting to get back together to be a whole, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always said that the ring wants to be with Saruman.
Yeah, it wants to get back to him.
It'll corrupt anyone to get him there.
And it, like, we know that, like, it is literally said that it shrinks and stuff and expands to slip off of people's fingers if it wants to. So,
Shit.
Yeah. Like I really like one of the scenes from Lord of the Rings that I actually really like. One of my favorite scenes is the scene where it runs away from Gollum at the very start, and just the sound of it hitting the steps, how heavy it sounds. Mm-hmm. Oh, and it rolling down like just as it steps, and then Bilbo finds it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I love the weight of it, the weight of the ring throughout the entire book. Like, it's just a ring; everyone picks it up like normal, but like whenever it drops, whenever it like hits something, because it's just so it sounds so heavy. The sounds in Lord of the Rings is really good. I like the sound effects.
they are. There's a reason they won multiple Oscars for their sound effects throughout all three movies. Yeah.
As they deserve it.
Sauron is technically right in this. Sorry, Saruman is technically right in that leaving Sauron to develop and grow stronger, the ring revealed itself. Obviously, he didn't do it in a very good way, because instead of shutting down Gandalf and telling the White Council that Gandalf sucks or whatever, he could have maybe explained his plan, and then it would have. But he was.
Oh my god, he's one of those bitches who told lies about him behind his back. It's just high school.
Sneaky boy.
So
Can we do the group project thing yet?
I was going to get to the end of this, and then we'll do that.
Oh, of course, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we can go. I mean, you could do it after we kind of, because I've got these ideas brewing around. I mean, is it really more important to finish the whole thing that we're presenting here, or should we get into this high school sort of role?
We're definitely finishing this.
I'm sorry.
So
Shut up, guy.
as we see the events play out in the movies, kind of an abridged version, ultimately the White Council, in about 10 years' time, we do see the White Council eventually get confronted with clear evidence that Sauron is alive in Dol Guldur, so all of them go and vanquish the Necromancer and destroy him in Dol Guldur. And that's a thing we see, an interpretation of it in the Hobbit movies in the final one. But anyway, and then another 10 years, Sauron reveals himself in Mordor. This is when the shadows all start to appear in Mordor, because it was just a desolate land for a while, but now it's like back to being its big status, and he repairs the fortress of Barad-dûr, etc. And also a fun thing, which I should have mentioned last time, but I forgot to, but I'm going to mention it now. The Eye of Sauron and everything, that's all a complete creation of the books. Of the movies. That's not a thing in the book at all. Yeah.
Is there like the mouth or the head of Sauron?
Nope.
Like that?
He's just kind of said to be in Mordor. That's it.
So there's the guy that comes out like the mouth of Sauron.
The mouth of Sauron. Yeah, there is someone that comes out and speaks to Aragorn and such. But yeah, the whole like Eye of Sauron tower, that's not in the books at all. That's a complete movie thing.
Really?
Yeah. But
really cool,
it's still fucking cool, and I mean, go figure, I like it. So, anyway,
it's a good visualization of how he is like he could see everywhere. It's a very good visualization.
Then 10 years later, and I think they tried to allude to this in the movies, but anyway, when they destroy Sauron, Saruman takes it kind of upon himself to keep track of Sauron and make sure that he doesn't keep coming back into power. And in the final Hobbit movie, after they banish Sauron and Galadriel like collapses for exhaustion, Saruman says, "You take Galadriel to safety, leave Sauron to me." When it's like meant to kind of imply, oh, he's gonna try and do things, and he's gonna get corrupted. Watch the other movies,
Just watch the movies that came out like 20 years ago.
Yeah, literally. So anyway, eventually, after this, Saruman gets his own Palantir, which he's had in Orthanc the whole time. And he knows that Sauron he discovers that Sauron also has a Palantir, which was stolen from Minas Ithil during the Last Alliance. And Sauron begin talking to each other through the Palantir.
Oh no, he slipped into his DMs.
And Saruman was hoping to learn information from this, because he's got such a strong willpower and such a powerful voice and way of communication himself. He didn't think it was possible for him to be bent by someone else.
Yep.
But ultimately,
when
Sauron...
chicks slip into their DMs.
God damn it. Ultimately, Sauron wins the Battle of Wills and gets Saruman onto his side. Though, a fun thing about Saruman, it's kind of... I can't remember if it's just implied or actually specifically stated, but while he joined Sauron's side, the whole time that he was there, Saruman was actually just wanting to get the One Ring for himself and then kick off Sauron. So he didn't just completely become Sauron's lackey.
He was there for himself.
Exactly.
Well, it's not called the one tower and that other guy. It's called the two towers for a reason.
The one tower.
And yeah, there's that whole thing of like Gandalf saying, there's only one Lord of the Rings and he does not share power. And then Saruman knows that. He's smart. He knows that Sauron will never share power. So that's why he wants to help Sauron and then take the ring for himself and become the individual.
I'm kind of dense. I think.
We know.
Does the ring have... Okay, you've probably explained this already. Does the ring literally have anything other than making you invisible? Because that seems kind of underpowered.
Oh, okay. Hit Jude rant in 3, 2, 1.
5 seconds.
I know, like, it's one of those things where the ring itself is effectively the spirit and power of a Maya condensed into one object. So
Right.
if you are a certain individual, say Sauron, it greatly amplifies his power. But for someone else and people of similar power level to Sauron, it would also greatly amplify their power. So like if
So Gandalf... that's why Gandalf... Okay,
yeah, because he's scared of it because he knows that not only would it make him like 10 times the power level, it would also instantly corrupt him pretty much because of how powerful he is. And this is also the same reason why the Eagles don't have much to do with the ring at all, and they only save Frodo after he destroys the ring, because if Gandalf would be a terrifying evil overlord of the ring, imagine one of the fucking Eagles with the power of the ring.
Okay, yeah, and then for people who aren't powerful, it just makes them invisible.
Because they aren't like able to use the power, so it just completely hides them. As you see, there's a good representation of it in the movies. If you want to put it into other terms, it's almost like they kind of not so much go invisible, but almost just like enter an ethereal plane almost. And then yes, that's kind of
sorry. I'm just dense.
No,
I
that's
was
all good,
wondering because there's such a scuffle over this goddamn ring, and it just seems like so much effort.
No, it's fair.
Hey guy.
Yeah, what?
All these questions you're asking, you know how you would know the answer to them?
I'm not gonna watch the movies.
Watch the movies.
I'm not gonna watch the movies. I refuse to.
It's not that bad. I guess it's good for the people if anyone's listening and hasn't watched the movies. So
it's good. It's good. Exactly. That's good. It's good to get questions of all types.
I'm the everyman. I'm the eyes of the audience.
So
Shut up.
So this whole thing leads Saruman down the evil path that we see play out in the movies, and he eventually begins chopping down Fangorn Forest and creates his own army of Uruk-hai, and that's all very, very industrial stuff, kind of heavily. I mean, obviously, from Tolkien's perspective, it was because he despised all industrialization and stuff, and he'd seen so much bad industrialization during World War One. This was kind of his way of really villainizing that sort of stuff, but it's also relating to the fact that he was a mayor of Elul, the smith. So, yeah, it all kind of comes back to that in a sense. And then, anyway, Saruman builds an army, one that he needs to take down Rohan with, which is one of the two main kingdoms of men. In Rohan, however, as I mentioned earlier, Theoden, the king of Rohan, gets corrupted by Saruman. But Saruman is still scared of the king's son, Theodred, and the king's nephew, Eomer, who are two very, very powerful men and strong generals of Rohan. So he kind of goes about his own little minute tasks to get rid of them. One of them, he kills Theodred because Theodred's kind of left alone because he's not able to get reinforcements and such in time because Theoden the king's been corrupted, so he's not sending as many troops as he should, so Theodred gets killed. And then because Saruman has control over Rohan, he, using his little puppet Grima Wormtongue, who is an individual who serves Saruman and helps corrupt Theoden, he basically gets Aemma imprisoned, and then Aemma's stuck in jail. So Saruman's like, sweet, these two people that I was afraid of are gone, so we can now attack Rohan. Which is all stuff you see play out in the second movie, but as he's just kind of in the position to completely destroy Rohan, in fact, if you want to get the exact quote, it's like, Rohan is ready to fall. And then just as he's about to do it all, Gandalf returns as Gandalf the White, which of course is the form Saruman was originally meant to be, and then Gandalf saves King Theoden from Saruman's spell, and then helps Rohan defeat Saruman. And then he strips Saruman of his staff and greatly reduces his power. And this is the thing you might remember from the movies, Matt, but for your sake, Guy, have you seen the memes of the big tree people that Ents?
Yes.
Yep, so after Saruman's been defeated...
But then again, you are very small, so it does something small people.
Yeah, that works. So when they defeat Saruman, his tower of Orthanc, Saruman is trapped inside that tower, stripped of his power, and the Ents are kind of guarding it because they've just destroyed Isengard and killed all of the orcs that were there. In one of the best battles in the whole thing, because it's just a bunch of slow-moving tree people destroying orcs. But anyway,
just throwing fucking rocks, yeet, and unleashing the dam.
Yep. Anyway, so then Gandalf gets there, they see Treebeard and the other Ents, they leave Saruman there under Treebeard's protection, but because, once again, the one power that Gandalf couldn't strip Saruman of was his voice and his way with words, so Saruman, after Gandalf had left to go fight in Gondor and such, he used his power of voice to convince Treebeard to let him slip past.
Please.
Which is what he does, and he escapes, and then he goes to the Shire because he's seen what the hobbits have done, and basically out of spite destroys the Shire. But after...
He probably got them to discuss whether they should let him go, and they turn around to discuss it.
Yeah, and then he's like,
should have
run
a
away!
slow discussion.
Imagining like the cartoon burglar, like tiptoe, like boom, 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 boom.
He turns around and it's like, we've agreed to discuss whether you should be let go.
Oh, he's already gone.
He's like miles away already. He's just yeeted down the road.
Yeah. So anyway, Saruman then takes the Shire, but eventually when the four hobbits get back and lead the whole hobbit uprising to fight Saruman and his lackeys, which is one of the best chapters ever, but it's also like really weird tacked onto the end of the movie. But tacked onto the end of the book because it's anyway. And then eventually, in the end, Saruman is killed by his advisor, Grima Wormtongue, who stabs him in the back. And then that's the end of Saruman. And then, as of course I mentioned, they are
only in
all...
the extended edition, actually. We were watching.
No, I'm saying this is his death in the books when he gets killed in the Shire.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, he gets a similar way.
Yeah, Grima kill. That's why they had Grima kill him in the extended edition. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. And anyway, so Saruman, as you know, he's a Maya, so he would technically be immortal and unable to die. But because of his betrayal and also the fact that he was killed in such the way that he was killed as well, because he was betrayed by someone close to him, which he never should have happened because he's meant to be a super wise wizard and such. But due to those things, he is left drifting and unable to take physical form again because the gods basically deny it.
Aww. That's rude.
Yep. So that's
poor guy.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So that's the end of the Wizards. Before I get into Tom Bombadil, I'll let you guys have your little.
All right. First of all,
Can I just say I miss Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee was such a good Saruman, and I miss him.
Oh, can I actually say one of my favorite Christopher Lee stories ever? Because it's
Go
amazing.
for it. I miss Christopher Lee.
There's some amazing behind the scenes stories from Christopher Lee in Lord of the Rings, but two of them in particular, because during the filming of the three movies was the same time that they were filming Attack of the Clones, when obviously he plays Count Dooku. And there's this one moment because everyone on set was kind of terrified of Christopher Lee because of all the actors. He was the biggest, the most famous actor of all of them. And he was like a lot older than all of them as well. Like even Ian McKellen, who's pretty old, Christopher Lee's like 10 plus years older than him.
Yeah.
So he's like a whole other generation above. And the other thing that's terrifying about him, he was friends with Tolkien while Tolkien was alive. And they actually served together in World War One.
Really?
Yeah, they were part of like the same force. So that's also part of the reason why Christopher Lee had such a vested interest in the stories and such. But anyway, so one of the stories that's a quick thing, when they were like having one of the set prepared meals that Peter Jackson, or well, you know, the direction team had put together for the cast and such, Peter Jackson just sees Christopher Lee walking over to get food, and he just hears him say, it's not as good as the food we got on Star Wars. And they're like, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm sorry.
I thought he was going to do something to endear himself to the cast and make himself be friendlier, but no, this food's kind of shit. Star Wars had it better.
And
Twice the pride, double the fall.
And then one of the best things as well, which is just great, because, you know, you picture Ian McKellen's like such a cool, really awesome, old, wizened actor. Christopher Lee was terrifying to him because, like I say, Christopher Lee was a generation above Ian McKellen. Obviously, I love Ian McKellen. He's one of my favorite actors of all time.
Oh, yeah.
But Christopher Lee was kind of terrifying to him a little bit because he's this massive deal. He was, in fact, I got to look it up, but I think Christopher Lee may have already had his big breakthrough as an actor before Ian McKellen had even started as an actor. So he's like huge to Ian McKellen. They're on set together for the first time, and Christopher Lee just walks up to him and goes, you know, when I used to read the books when I was younger, I always thought that I should play Gandalf. And Ian McKellen's just like, ha 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 ha, okay.
Looks silly as terrified.
Did he ever, in an interview, confess that he just went onto set to fuck with everyone? Because that sounds kind of like what his plan was.
He must have.
And then the scene that you were talking about, Matt, when he gets stabbed in the back, Peter tries to like tell him how to act out getting stabbed in the back, and then because Christopher Lee, he was part of like elite special forces in the First World War, so he's done some shit, right? And then he gives Peter this massive lecture on what it actually sounds like when you stab someone in the back, and Peter's like, ha ha ha, I don't know why you know this, and I don't want to, ha ha, okay, you do your thing.
Yeah, because there's that quote of like, it's not a big yell. It's more like the air's being.
Yeah, it's more like you've been winded and like, kind of. Yeah. And Peter's just like, if you know it, I'm just gonna let you do your thing.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, yeah, you can do your high school thing.
You kind of just killed the high school vibes.
Sorry, that was my bad.
No, that's okay.
Okay, back to high school. So, I've got a little meme up here. I don't know if Guy wants to start off, but I've got a little meme up here.
I've got a very brief summation. Day one, we all get together in the group. Everyone's very enthusiastic about this group project. We're all very happy that we've been assigned as a group together because it's a cool group project. We've got a good topic. Saruman starts giving people jobs. The Blue Wizards immediately fuck off and doesn't see
Can I say one
them for
thing?
the rest of the time. Nope, this is mine. Radagast keeps submitting work that he doesn't have any citations for, so therefore he can't submit it. It's good work, he doesn't know what it's from. Gandalf's doing good shit. Saruman keeps telling people what to do, even though his work ain't that good either. He's doing discredited work, but he just doesn't put the effort in. Radagast's an idiot, so he just does it because he doesn't know he should, whereas Saruman just doesn't give a fuck. Gandalf pulls through, everyone has a good time. Thank you.
And no one have heard since the Blue Wizards. No one's heard from them ever since the start of the project.
Yeah, precisely. Day one, they were like, "Fuck yeah, cool topic, I love this," and then just disappeared. They're sick.
The kids,
it's more of a uni project because you can't really have people disappear during high school.
No, yeah,
really
you know what it's like.
people
It's like those
disappear.
people when you get assigned into a group project in week 1, and then they drop out of the course before census, and you never hear from them again.
Or no, you look for them in the lectures. You ask for them in anything. You email them. And you never hear from them again. It's like, did they die? Did they drop off the face of the fucking earth? Where are they?
Yeah.
I think it's less
And no one can tell
frustrating
you
than-
because they're the Blue Wizards.
Because I've had people in my group who have contributed nothing, and I see them online because of Teams and like online learning. I can see them in the lecture, and then they just don't show up to the meeting immediately after the lecture. It's like, I know you're there. Whereas if they just weren't there, I'd be like,
That's
all right, they're
Radagast.
dead, cool.
That's Radagast.
That's Radagast. You see him in the lecture, he doesn't show up to the meeting.
Yeah.
He wasn't invited to the White Council.
Yeah, that's my favourite thing, because the Blue Wizards, okay, they've kind of left Middle-earth, they've gone far into the east, but Radagast, he's there. There's not a particular reason why he can't be on the White Council, he just wasn't invited.
No, I imagine that they had a group before, and it was like, okay, get into groups before, and then Radagast didn't have a group, so the teacher was like, he's like, can you guys take Radagast with you guys?
Because he's there
He
just
doesn't have a
like
group.
Radagast
munching
is
on a
the teacher's
mushroom.
son. Radagast is the teacher's son.
He is.
And he and they don't want to look like they don't want to be mean, so they're like, yeah, sure, you can join us.
Oh, that happened. That
the
happened
ring
in
of
one of my assignments recently, the group project thing. We'd because there was the 2 major assessments, all the planning stage and the actual thing. We'd finished all of the planning. It was like week 7 of a 12-week trimester. And then we get into lecture, and the teacher's like, hey guys, so we've got this student, this is the first class they've showed up to, and they need a group. Who's willing to take them? And there was just silence.
Silence. Yeah.
And it was so awkward, like 10 minutes of silence. The teacher's like, could you take him? Could you take him? And just no one said anything.
Jesus.
It's because in for high school, they the teacher knows the students, so which students will be nice to be like, hey, Emily, could you take him into your group? You'll be nice to him. You'll be like, but like in uni, they don't know anyone, so they can't be like, Tim, could you take him?
Yeah.
Sauron's a shitty student, and the Ring of Power is video games.
No, I've got like a little meme.
Don't tempt me.
I've got a meme up here that pretty much describes it. So it's the 4 people walking, and it's like does 99% of the work, which is Gandalf. Has no idea what's going on the whole time. Radagast.
Yep.
Says he's gonna help, but doesn't. Saruman. Disappears at the very beginning and doesn't show up.
Blue Wizards.
It's
That's
perfect.
perfect.
It's literally this meme. This meme is perfect.
Okay, consider this, and listen, I haven't thought this 100% through. Was J.R.R. Tolkien a prophet, but just for memes? He could see the memes of the future, but nothing else.
He knew what it would be like.
He knew.
The Wizards is an allegory for a group project hundreds of years later. That's my theory.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to Tom Bombadil now.
Oh, fuck yeah, there's more.
Oh yeah.
Tom
The
Bombadil.
bomb.
What is he?
Is he a wizard? No, where did he come from?
Is he a bomb? Is he a dill?
Where did he come from? Where'd you go? Where'd you come
first,
from? Bombadil
my
Jones.
first note on Tom Bombadil is, oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
That's his first note?
That's my first
yeah.
note. Note to self
I'm ready.
before talking about Tom Bombadil. So,
Oh boy.
one of the lines from a song that Tom Bombadil likes to sing. Tom Bombadil is a
did you
merry
come from?
fellow.
Where did you go?
No, Tom.
Where'd you come from? Bombadil Joe.
Fuck's sake. Old Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow. Bright blue his jacket is, and his boots are yellow.
Why?
Is that true?
Yup.
Cool.
He
He's
has
not lying.
He has a bright blue jacket and little yellow booties.
I have a great picture in my mind.
I have no concept of why the fuck are we talking about this guy? Who is he? What does he do? What's his? Give me a little summary, brief taste.
Hey! Let him talk. Let the man.
No,
talk.
but like I have no concept of this character.
It doesn't
It's like
matter.
Gandalf, cool. He's one of the main characters. What the fuck does Tom Bombadil?
Tom
have to do with
Bombadil
anything?
is a guy wearing a blue jacket and boots
Before
right
this
now,
episode,
who sings
Jude
the song.
talked about Jude mentioned nothing of the Wizards, and that's been most of the conversation up until this point. He just talked about how excited he was to talk about Tom Bombadil, and I don't know what to expect.
So,
Okay, just let Jude talk. He will explain.
yeah.
Talk about Tom Bombadil.
So, basically, he's a character that appears briefly in the first book, Lord of the Rings, when Frodo and co are on the way to meet Gandalf in Bree and then eventually Rivendell, and the 4 hobbits are just on their own. They accidentally go into this section of forest, which is Tom Bombadil's land, his little zone, and they run into an issue where they try to sleep against a tree called Old Man Willow, and the tree starts to swallow and take in the hobbits. And then Tom Bombadil comes along and sings this song that he sings and slams his staff against the tree and it lets them go. Which they did, Matt, for your sake, is, I can't remember if it's an extended edition scene or not, but in the Two Towers, when Merry and Pippin get absorbed by the tree, and then Treebeard comes and says that thing and gets the tree to let them go.
Yeah.
That's actually recycling the scene that happens with Tom Bombadil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that whole, and even like down to the dialogue that Treebeard says, that's actually the words that Tom Bombadil sings to the tree to get it to make him let go. So the hobbits, they nearly get eaten by a tree. Then this little dude, he's kind of sort of oldish, with, you know, big happy expression, with this bright blue jacket and these yellow boots and this old worn hat with a little feather in it. He runs over, excitedly whacks the tree with his staff and sings this little song. The tree lets them go. They're a little bit confused, the hobbits, because go figure. So they come back home with him, and then it leads to all this stuff. I'm not going to tell the story of what happens with Tom Bombadil in the book, but that's how he meets the hobbits, and then they kind of go from there. One of the big things that happens with Frodo and Tom Bombadil, which I will tell you about before I say a little bit more about him. So we've established the ring, right? We've established how horrifying it is, terrifying, makes lesser people invisible, and then corrupts greater people. So like Gandalf and such would just get corrupted by it. Frodo shows the ring. Tom Bombadil goes, "Oh, that's super evil." Frodo's like, yeah. Tom Bombadil says, "Can I hold it?" Frodo tentatively gives Tom Bombadil the ring.
You idiot, Frodo.
Tom Bombadil holds it, looks at it, goes, "Interesting." Puts it on. Nothing happens. Thinks, this is boring.
Nice.
So Tom Bombadil makes the ring disappear.
What?
Fuck me, what?
He makes the ring disappear, then takes it off, goes, "Interesting," and gives it back to Frodo.
What? Wait, what?
So he's a Valar, obviously.
No, he's got negative powers. He's negative. Like, you know.
Actually, yeah, shit.
He's got negative abilities.
So, the thing with Tom Bombadil, nobody knows what he is. He is an immortal being that has lived in this tiny section of Middle-earth for since forever. He's lived there.
Do we have records?
He's a fucking Easter egg.
He is just there.
He's an Easter egg.
The best quote from his wife that describes Tom Bombadil is simply...
Fucking wife.
Yes, I'll get to her. The quote that she says to the hobbits when they're asking, "But who is he?" She simply says, "He is." Full stop.
He's like a force of nature.
He just is. That is...
Morgoth made the races. He made the humans, the elves, and the hobbits. And he also just put Tom Bombadil in there because...
To fuck with people so they would rant about him for ages.
He thought it was funny.
So he is like stupidly powerful. He saves the hobbits from these things called Barrow-wights, which are like really powerful spirit things that try to get him. He very effortlessly defeats them. And then he helps the hobbits get to Bree and Rivendell with super ease because he's just Tom Bombadil. He's OP like that.
Hell yeah.
And then Frodo mentions him when they have the Council of Elrond in the book. They're like, "We need more powerful people to help us fight Sauron." And they kind of acknowledge the fact that Tom Bombadil could probably take on Sauron pretty easily. In fact, there is a quote, I can't remember where it is, and I couldn't source it, but there's actually a quote from someone that they theorize that if Sauron won, so he got his way, he got the ring, turned the world into a desolate wasteland, in the wasteland there would be one little oasis, and that would be Tom Bombadil's little area. Because you just can't. But the thing is, he will never leave his land. He simply does not want to, and there is nothing that you can say or do to make him
able to, or he doesn't want to?
He doesn't want to. He's just, this is my land. Why would I go outside of my land?
Has he been around since the start of the world?
As far as anyone knows.
Okay.
Because
is there any other thing we know about his powers?
I'll explain a little bit more.
Okay.
So, yes, this is a thing, but then also one of the elves says, if Sauron had the ring and all of his armies, I think all of the armies and Sauron would be able to defeat Tom Bombadil just. But also, like, people think that maybe they wouldn't, so whatever.
It's a highly debated topic.
It is. It's like, could he? Maybe he could beat Sauron and all of his armies. That'd be fun.
It's an in-world theory.
Fuck Batman versus Superman, Sauron and his armies versus Tom Bombadil.
So the thing with Tom Bombadil that is interesting, it is what's the word? As I mentioned briefly, Eru, the big overall god. He created the world through song. He started singing a song which created the Valar, and then the Valar started singing their own parts of the song, and then that created the world. So a thing with Tom Bombadil, which has given people some, maybe this is what he is. Everything that he does, he sings through song. Tom Bombadil is described as being master of wood, water, and hill. With song, simply by singing a song, he makes this old ancient tree, Old Man Willow, release the hobbits, and defeats the supernatural Barrow-wights with ease through singing song. Also, despite being rather whimsical and nonsensical being, he was well known to many powerful beings in Middle-earth, including Elrond and Gandalf, and he could be serious if the need arose. And obviously, yes, the whole thing about the ring, that is one of his most extraordinary displays of power, when he simply picks up the ring, puts it on, makes it disappear, and goes, huh, that's cool. And Gandalf says at the Council of Elrond that the ring has no power over him.
So Tom Bombadil, he isn't corrupt. He's too powerful to be corrupted by the ring.
Yes.
He just is.
So they didn't really need to bring the ring to Mount Mordor. They could have just brought it to Bombadil, and he could have probably destroyed it.
Well, no, he didn't want to keep it there. He was like, "Oh yeah, keep doing your quest." It just had no sway over him.
But I think what Matt's saying is he would be a safe keeper of the ring.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to be.
Yeah.
And what Tom Bombadil wants to happen, wants to not happen, generally ends up happening.
It's like me saying my passport would be safe in, the Queen's personal safe, but whether I'm able to use that or not is the next question.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
Is difficult to answer.
Would you allow it?
No.
More so, some of the theories about what the hell Tom Bombadil actually is.
I was goofing about him being a Valar, but maybe.
There is.
I think he's a Uluru he making himself on the world.
So it was one of the original theories that was put out while Tolkien was still alive, is that Tom Bombadil was an incarnation of Eru Ilúvatar in the world, and that is what he was.
That's my theory.
But Tolkien actually completely disproved that and said, I like the theory, but no, Eru is a completely separate entity to the world, self-contained in a different world. He's not connected at all.
No. Trash talk,
Which then brings the question of, what the fuck is he? So, some of the other theories, and what it's kind of accepted that he's not a Valar, he's something more / different to a Valar. As he, unlike the Valar, who are all contained within Valinor, he's just always been in this little pocket of Middle-earth, and he's just been there. And he, what's the word? So one of the big theories is that he's connected to the world, and that he is a physical representation of the world, or Arda, if you will. Because there is also another quote at the Council of Elrond when they're talking about him, and then the quote is that even Bombadil would be unable to withstand a siege by Sauron unless such power is in the earth itself, which can sort of imply that the character may be a manifestation of Middle-earth's inherent properties, so the actual earth itself as a character. But the other thing that's
my next theory.
Yeah, but the other theory as well, which that could also be what he is. My favorite theory about him is that when because he has such a connection to song and everything, he must be that high level of god status to be that connected to song and have all of his power through song, because that is the power of the Valar. They are the ones, after Eru, they are the ones that continued singing the song and sung their own parts of the song to create the world and shape the world and stuff. So he must be that level of power. And the theory goes that when Eru was singing the song, creating the world, a part of the song that he sung became self-sufficient and continued singing itself, even though Eru had stopped singing it, and it just kind of became its own separate entity rather than something under the control of Eru, and that free song is what became Tom Bombadil.
He's a fucking song stuck in the ear of the world.
Yeah, kinda.
He got stuck in his head.
Yeah, you can say it like that.
Jesus Christ.
So the other thing as well, there's, for example, just to give you an idea of how old he is, one of the quotes from the book is, "Eldest, that's what I am. Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from the outside." So he's just been there forever.
He's an alpha tester.
I do like the theory that he's the embodiment of the world. That's a good.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing, is that he was. You can kind of. There's also the combination of both the theories, that he was created through the song that became its own thing and just kind of kept singing itself and became its own entity, and everyone was like, okay, we'll leave that. It's its own thing now. And then that became the embodiment of the world. That's, well, you know.
He could be the embodiment of song itself.
That is also a possibility. So, yeah, he's kind of just crazy.
What if he's a first draft? Like the first type of the song that was singing, like Eru was just chilling and like, I'm going to sing a little song about a guy. He's like, you know what, this is a good idea. This is a cool little word. I'm going to expand it. And he just forgot about the first paragraph that he wrote was just about this dude in a forest. And he's like, oh, fuck, wait.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot.
He scribbled up and
There's...
chucked it in the bin and then missed.
In my notes, I remember there's actually the thing that Gandalf says about Tom, which is hilarious, and I swear Tolkien was just having fun with Tom Bombadil as a concept at this point. Because Frodo, he's like, I gave the ring to Tom, and he just kind of took it and was like fine with it, so could we give it to him? And Gandalf believed that if all of the free people in Middle-earth together begged Tom to take the ring, he would probably do it. But he wouldn't understand why, because he just simply doesn't understand or have any sway over the ring. He's just like, it's a ring, what do you want from me? Because it has no power to him.
He's a human.
He's
really annoyed.
He's
like,
just,
I
yeah.
don't want to, why?
Which, Gandalf's thing is that because he would not understand it, he would likely either forget about it or throw it away as such thing, because his whole thing is that he has nothing materialistic about him. He lives in this little section of forest and river and hill and stuff, and he just kind of goes around in his little clothes. He doesn't have a home, he doesn't have belongings, so because of that, Gandalf fears that if he was given the ring, he would just kind of leave it somewhere or throw it away.
Fucking lose it.
Well,
He loses
it's very probable, because he's just kind of this dude going
and
around
pull the
singing
ring, get
stuff.
someone else come and grab it like a hobbit and come and, oh my god.
Yeah, imagine. So that's the reason
He's
that...
the most powerful and most forgetful and like the worst person to leave it with. Like when Guy said first draft, like he's the first draft of the song, I was like, first draft in like a sports team? Yeah, if I was picking it.
Yeah, he's the first pick, yeah, for
if
sure.
I was picking a sports team for in Middle-earth, he would definitely be my first draft.
He's
So then
Eru's self-insert.
the-
It's not Eru himself, but it's a version of...
Fuck. So that other thing as well, in the Fourth Age, so post Lord of the Rings, 4 years after the One Ring's destroyed, before Gandalf and Frodo depart Middle-earth, Gandalf actually spends some time with Tom Bombadil. It is unknown how the meeting, or what the meeting involved, what was discussed, but Gandalf says when Frodo asks him at the end how Bombadil was going, Gandalf simply said he is as well as ever, quite untroubled by what's just happened, because, the entire country was just at war, and that he had very little interest in anything that had happened in the War of the Ring, except possibly little interest in the Ents. Because, Gandalf's there to tell him about, so there was the war, and there was all this stuff, and there was that battle, and that battle, and that battle, and Tom Bombadil's like, oh, okay. Cool.
And there were trees that helped us at the... Trees?
Ooh. Yeah, literally. Well, because the Ents are like super, super ancient magic, so Tom Bombadil would have a bit of interest in that, but
He's like the trees. I remember those guys. I remember back in college. I was friends with them. Oh.
He's D&D. He's a level 20 character who's retired.
Yeah.
Level 5 characters are running around doing their adventures.
Literally.
Like, yeah, cool.
oh yeah, I
I haven't
remember when
seen
that was
those
me.
guys in ages.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Tell them I'm doing good. Tell
He's a
them.
level 20 monk. He doesn't age.
So yeah, that's the thing with Tom Bombadil. He just is. Then his wife Golbery, I don't have too much to say on her. And we are very nearing the end, but I'll say a little bit on Golbery because she is a character. She is also known as the River Daughter and the wife of Tom Bombadil. And little is known of her origin in nature, except that it is speculated that she is a river spirit from a river that passes through Tom Bombadil's territory. And supposedly she arrived around the Third Age, or a bit before, but, once again, this sort of Tom Bombadil stuff, we don't really have much individual information, so who knows? So she's kind of meant to be this very beautiful blonde-haired, gown-wearing woman who's the wife of Tom Bombadil, and she's kind of the embodiment of the river, if you will. So quite literally a river spirit, which does lend itself nicely to Tom Bombadil being the embodiment of the world Arda itself, because then his wife's the river, and then he's like the land. It works nicely if that was the case, but yeah, who knows?
Sure.
So is Tom if okay, and I know there's a whole lot of quotes about Tolkien not liking allegory, but there are allegory in the stories, of course, to the real world, and World War One especially. Is Tom Bombadil Switzerland? He's in his own part of the place. He doesn't deal with anyone, and he leaves everyone alone.
Yep,
It's Switzerland.
That's totally what it is, 100%.
Tom Bombadil is Switzerland.
Yep, god damn it, he is too.
Oh god,
Jesus.
I do love Tom Bombadil. He sounds fun. I love his clothes. That's my favorite part of him. He's just so fun.
Yep, just
If you look at a photo. Everyone's seen like not a photo, obviously, but like a picture of him.
yeah,
It's
just
so fun.
Fucking, there's a photo of Tom Bombadil IRL. Such
Oh
a
my God, there
powerful
actually
creature.
is.
He's
Yeah,
come out
yeah.
of the work.
Oh my God, he looks so fun.
He does. Have a good old look. That's Tom Bombadil in his bright blue jacket, his little yellow boots.
I love him.
That's my ideal, friend who lives in the forest who I can go see in the time. I think we all want a friend like that.
And
I think we all want a friend who lives in the forest.
To
I can go see with an all-powerful god ring.
Yeah, I think we all kind of want that in our lives.
Yeah, dog.
so yeah, Tom Bombadil. There's once again, it's without going into really deep lore that I don't particularly want to get into for the sake of keeping it more enjoyable, not only for the sake of podcast, but also my own, because go figure, I do like Tolkien's work a lot, and it's my favorite work, but it's, I don't want to completely dive too deep into it too much, I suppose.
We need content for more episodes.
Yeah. Look, if everyone really wants to hear more about Tom Bombadil, perhaps I'll find more. Well, do get more together, but that was
Every Lord of the Ring episode from now on is topic and Tom Bombadil, and it's just a little bit more.
We get a little bit more every episode.
He exists everywhere. He's an eternal being. He exists in every episode.
okay.
Oh
So
my
here's the
God.
plan, guys. We want to get the page with as many followers as we can, so that I can have enough steam behind me to email Christopher Tolkien and say, "Tell us about Tom Bombadil,
Force him
you
to
bastard."
give it to you.
just
We'll start a Twitter hashtag.
Yes,
That'll be
we
up.
will, and it'll go viral.
It'll go
Oh
so
yes,
viral. Release
and
Tom
our-
Bombadil.
I think we have 2 followers on Twitter.
Oh, sweet, yeah, 100%, man.
Nice.
Fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah.
Well,
Well,
to
yeah,
you
release
2
Tom
followers,
Bombadil.
you've got to start the revolution. We got to
Build a
find out.
star. I think the two of the followers are us.
I don't
No,
have.
I think one-
I don't.
I
I
think
don't.
one's-
I don't have Twitter, so.
I have Twitter.
Oh my God, one of those guys.
Oh no, guys in
No.
charge of a thing for Lord of the Rings.
Hell yes. I am the leader of a revolution for a country I don't live in.
There is
Oh boy.
we should have every Middle Earth episode has a new, just at the end of it, it's just a Bombadil fact.
Yeah, a little Tom Bombadil.
Every
fact.
episode should have a Bombadil fact.
I mean, maybe
Every
I'll preface every episode with a Hobbit fact and a Tom Bombadil fact at the end.
Nice.
Christ. Okay.
Alrighty, that was.
I'm glad we've made future plans.
Yeah. So that was.
I'm on fucking Google and just I'm on the images for. I just looked Tom Bombadil images. I'm looking at them, and one of the images is Tom Bombadil the Witch King?
Yeah, that's another theory that I don't particularly want to touch on because it's so ridiculously stupid, but there's apparently a theory that he's the Witch King in disguise, and it's like, yes, because the individual that's trying to steal the ring from Frodo and stabs him to try and get it the entire movies would have it handed to him and give it back.
Give it, yeah. What?
It's so dumb.
Dumbest fucking theory I've ever heard.
And the fact that Gandalf chats with him. Gandalf and the Witch King are like literally mortal enemies. They're
like,
it's so dumb.
so dumb. Holy shit.
It's been an excellent episode, Jude. Thank you for this good wizard chat.
Yes,
Yes.
I love wizards. As I said, Mundungus Fletcher's my favorite.
Oh boy.
Christ.
So yes,
We're never going to do a Harry Potter episode. It's too much.
It's too much. Or maybe Matt can do one just on Mundungus Fletcher.
It's already planned in the calendar.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Christ.
Don't give that
Have
information.
you guys checked?
Don't give that information away.
That you guys
Matt.
made.
Matt, shut up! You don't want to give the information away. Shut up!
Can't tell.
What calendar, Matt? We don't have a calendar. What are you talking
I mean,
about?
we don't plan any of this. This comes up every
Yeah.
episode. We just
call each other on Discord, and one of us just has a topic ready.
Exactly.
and when we don't, we just go, hey, Jude, just fucking spread about Lord of the Rings for 2 hours.
Exactly.
I'll be honest, I don't even ever hit record. The episodes just go up, and my voice is in there.
I'm kind of confused. I never started this podcast. People are just listening to me. We don't upload
I've never
these.
met Jude. Does he exist?
All right. Thanks. All right. Thanks for listening. Thank you. Goodbye. Good night.
Thank you for listening. It's been very good. Have a good night.
Thank you, and good night.
Bye. Why is it still good night? It's 11 a.m. Dude. Fuck's sake.
I hate the fact that we can't settle on a time. I think is now just it's a character trait.
It's just part of us.
It's part of the show.
We forgot to pub the social medias. Quickly follow us. On
Oh
social
yeah,
medias.
social media crew.
Follow us on social medias on Facebook and Twitter and
What's our at? What's our at? Pull
At
it up.
Living by the Law.
At Living by the Law.
Living by the Law. We got it. We got the at.
Yep.
We got
Yep.
the at.
And
And tweet hashtag Living by the Law.
Justice for Tom Bombadil at Christopher
Hashtag
Tolkien.
Justice for Tom Bombadil.
You know what?
Yeah, just at
You know what? My final thing.
And kind of actually important.
Yes.
And if it doesn't take out of your day, please rate us on iTunes. We're trying to get more ratings on iTunes because the more you help, the more people we can get to, the more work we can do for you guys. Love you guys.
I love you so much.
Oh
Love you
no!
all.
Christopher Tolkien's dead.
And
What?
on that note, we'll be seeing you guys. Hope you enjoyed listening. And goodbye. Thank you for listening to Living by the Law. If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes and tell your friends. The link is in the description, and thank you in advance. Also, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Living by the Law to keep updated on all the latest about our podcast. We have been, and always will be, living by the law. Thank you for your company, and good night.